The Marcia Week Show. It's the Marcia Week Show. From Barbados to Africa, voices unite. Educate minds, elevate sight. It's the Marcia Week Show. It's the Marcia Week Show. From Barbados to Africa, voices unite. Educate minds, elevate sight. It's the Marcia Week Show. Talk truth, build roots, stories unfold. Motivate change, mobilize is the mode, that's the MR code. Hey! We growing, we know it. Why she flying now? Is she a prime minister or a pilot? Action now. Action now. Hey, is she a prime minister or pilot? Every week a next flight in the docket. Hostess or conquer who could tell? Barbados come through not doing well. Borrow and fly, fly and borrow. Tax the people, cry tomorrow. Plane take off, nothing drop down, not a cent. Touching the ground, fly over governments. Hey, fly and gone again. Hey. So big body people strain. We catching heat, they catching plane. Fly over governments. Hey. No landing in the rain. Fly over governments. Them up high we remain. Yeah. Every time we talk, we hush. Next thing plane ride, do whoosh. Making airline. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain borrowing again. Fly over government. Fly over government.
Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, Barbados. Good evening, the Caribbean. You are watching the Marcia Week Show, and we are coming to you live from Barbados. I'm holding in my hand the national flag of Barbados, and you just heard the national anthem of Barbados, and we are so proud of the anthem of Barbados. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the Marcia Week Show. Those of you joining for the first time since 2026, welcome to this new edition of the Marcia Week Show. We are excited, guys. we are excited about 2026. I know a lot of people, they probably don't even realize that we're on. So I'm going to need you to like, to share, and of course to subscribe. All right. So once again, like, everybody, if you haven't liked it, share to all of your WhatsApp groups and let people know that we're actually on tonight. We are on tonight, an amazing show for you. We're going to talk about Maduro. After Maduro, what happens to the Caribbean? What's going to happen to all of these Caribbean states, the CARICOM? We're going to talk about that, and then we're going to go into some local issues. We're going to talk about the wave of crime that started of this new year and the domestic tourism piece of legislation that the government is seeking to pass right here in Barbados. We're going to look at that in its entirety. So we need everybody, all into that. So guys, go ahead, like and share. We're going to also discuss some of the links that the government itself has with crime. We're going to talk about that. Some of the links that we're seeing with the government and crime. And so we don't understand the hypocrisy of saying we want to get rid of crime and we're going to pass all this legislation, but the proximity, the closeness, and the there's something that's happening there. We're gonna discuss that a bit more. Okay, so folks, we need you to help us tonight. All right, so you're gonna put it in all of your WhatsApp groups right now. Put it on your Facebook pages. Send it to your friends. So just do that right now because we were off for a little bit and we're back on now. So I'm going to ask you to go ahead and to like and to share. But we're in 2026, and I don't know about you. I don't always make a New Year's resolutions, but I sit down and I think about my life and where I am and where I want to be and what's happening with me. I kind of take inventory, of what is happening in my life. And as I was doing that, I started to reflect on some of the areas that I could improve. Those areas that seem a little dry. There's not much life into those areas. And I just wanted to, as a family, because, I see you as my family. You're part of my family. Yes, 4 nights a week we are on here, guys. 7 million views. We're going to come to that a little later. 7 million views, folks. Oh, my goodness. That we racked up 7 million views between in all of 2025. And we've been doing this together. And we kind of have to stop and ask ourselves as we step into a new year. We have to ask ourselves some simple questions, but honest questions. And I want to ask you tonight, do you feel like you are in a valley going into 2026? We went driving around Barbados today and we saw all these beautiful, views and the landscape, and you see in the valley, and it's beautiful inside. We actually got out and we're peeping down, in some of the areas, and you will find a gully down there, and you find water running, or something happening. There are lots of greenery is happening in the valleys in Barbados. Not that we have great mountains, but we have those low areas, and and so. Sometimes we feel like we're in a valley, but we want to be on the mountaintop, right? And this valley, I'm not talking about the poetic kind of valley. I'm not talking the Instagram kind, but the real kind, the kind where you're tired. Anybody up there feeling tired? The kind where you feel a little depleted. The kind where you've done all the right things and still ended up here. In a place you don't like the place you're in. It doesn't feel like a mountaintop. Anybody? Thumbs up if that's you. If it's not you, then it's not for you. But sometimes I feel this way. I feel a bit tired. I feel a bit depleted. Because a lot of people are walking into 2026. A lot of us carrying exhaustion. instead of excitement? Are you excited about 2026? And I want you to know something today, this evening. You're not strange. Okay? You're not weak. You're not alone. We live in a culture that celebrates mountaintop experiences. It's about, being on the mountaintop every day, the highs, the wins, the applause, the breakthroughs, the moments where everything feels clear, light, and euphoric. Right? Isn't that true? We used to have a saying that said, speak the truth and shame the devil. Yeah, we all like that mountaintop. On the mountaintop, the air feels fresher, the view is wider, you feel powerful, and you feel alive up there. And we've had those moments in 2025. And these moments, they do matter. They're important. They remind us of what's possible. That's why we're told to have faith. It's all be full of hope. Things are going to get better because we want to be at the mountaintop. But here's a question we don't ask enough. Is the mountaintop sustainable? Is that where life actually grows, on the mountaintop? That's not what I saw today when I was driving around. Because when you really think about it, people don't build farms on mountaintops. They don't grow crops on rocky peaks. Very rarely. They don't plant roots where the soil is thin and the winds are harsh. The reality is that life is grown in valleys, the low areas. In most agricultural societies, the valley is where the work happens. The valley has water, as I told you, I saw that today, which tells us we could do a lot more agriculture in Barbados. The valley has water, good soil, space to grow because it's flat, room for roots, conditions for sustainability. The valley is green. The valley is productive. The valley is where food is grown to feed entire nations. So, I was reading the Bible. A lot of you went to Sunday school. Anybody remember Sunday school? You still go to Sunday school? Did you remember reading Ezekiel 37 and talk about the bones and this bone connected to that bone and that bone connected to that bone? Remember that? And I can't remember, but we said that ankle bone connected to the something bone and we sing these little songs. But it was about this story in the Bible where Ezekiel was put out in this valley and he saw the valley and the valley was filled with bones, right? So it's called the Valley of Dry Bones. And for the longest time, whenever I heard that story, I would focus or read that story, focus on the bones, the depth, the dryness of the bones. But this time, when I read it over the holidays, I noticed the word valley. So it says Valley of Dry Bones. I just focus on the bones. But I noticed the word valley because something didn't add up. Why would a valley, a place designed for life? Remember I said the valley is green because that's where the water is, right? Why would a valley, a place designed for life, be so dry? Why would a place meant for growth be full of death? And you know what? It told me something very important, that this valley used to be alive. Something happened here. There was movement at one time. Once growth, once purpose was there, strength. But now it's dry, it's brown, silent, exhausted, like how sometimes we feel. Some of you feel that way going into 2026. A little dry and brown, silent. You're a bit exhausted. And if we're being honest, that's how a lot of us feel, right? Some of you feel dry emotionally. You've cried all the tears you had. Some of you have lost so many loved ones. We've had so many deaths in Barbados, friends and family and, even just a neighbor and people, just death around us. You don't even feel sad anymore sometimes. You just feel numb. Another funeral, another, somebody lost their job. You can't buy the food you want to buy at the supermarket. You can't eat the way you want to eat. Some of you feel dry financially. Nothing in the bank. You're saving, and nothing is there. Can't make ends meet. It's tough. Savings depleted. Your bills piling up. You're working hard but not getting ahead. Some of you feel dry relationally. Your friends are faded away. Your support systems have weakened. You feel alone. And even when people are around, sometimes you feel dry even spiritually. You don't feel connected to your creator. I'm not talking about going to church. I'm talking, you know what I mean. You still believe, but you're tired. And the fire doesn't feel the same. You're in a valley. And instead of being green, it feels dead. And like many of us, including myself, you keep looking back at the mountaintops, right? You're remembering when, but back at when things were easier, when you felt more confident, when you felt seen, when life made sense. And you want to get back up there, don't you? But here's the truth. The valley is not a punishment. Your valley, how you're feeling right now, is not a punishment. It's a process. And that Bible story you read when you were a little girl or a little boy going to Sunday school or to school and sang about Ezekiel. In that story, God asked a question. Son of man, that was to Ezekiel, can these bones live? In other words, can life return here? Can hope rise again? Can I have a hope again? I know some of you had a tough year. You got sick, whether you got a stroke. Some of you were in the hospital. You asked, can hope rise again? Can joy come back? I spoke to a friend who I didn't hear for a long time, and she said, Marcia, I was sick for the entire year. Can purpose be restored? Can strength grow where exhaustion now lives? And you know what Ezekiel said? Lord, only you know. Is that doubt? No, that's not doubt. That's humility, saying, God, I don't even know. I don't know whether I come in or I go. Anybody feel that way? Oh, God, I don't know whether I come in or I go. Because sometimes you don't even have the strength to believe, but you still show up. You still, you're living. And I chose to speak to you like this because over the last 2 weeks we had a friend of ours, someone, and I'm not saying any names, so I'm not giving anything away, but I'll just be as opaque as possible. Someone that I know who ended up being suicidal, didn't want to live anymore. But when you see the exterior of this person, they seem so great. Like they are full of life, but they were dying inside. And I thought we could come on each night and we talk about all the different things that's happening in the country. But how are we doing? How am I doing? Sometimes you just feel weak. You just feel like you can't go on anymore. Sometimes even thinking about what this country has become depletes our energy, makes us exhausted. And God is saying, can you live again? And you say, well, God, I don't even know. But then God says something powerful. He doesn't say, watch me. He doesn't say, stand back. He says, Marcia, speak to the valley. Speak to how you're feeling. I shared with that person who was suicidal. I said to that person, I said, write out some declaration, write out things, look in the mirror, speak to yourself, speak to the body, speak to the situation. This is where the turning point happens. You have a responsibility in the valley. God tells Ezekiel, you speak first. Speak when it looks dry. Speak when it feels hopeless. Speak when nothing has changed yet. Because faith isn't pretending the valley doesn't exist, you know. Faith is speaking into the valley. Some of us are silent in places where we need to speak. We rehearse the loss. You know, we rehearse the loss of this nation. We talk about all the good things that used to be there. We rehearse the loss of what's happening in our families, what happened with our children. My son used to do this, and he's now smoking weed. He's gone to jail. My son got, you might even be watching it, my son got shot. My son got killed. My daughter, I met somebody, my daughter said my daughter is on the streets on crack. We rehearse the loss, we repeat the fear, we declare the worst. The doctor says, I won't be able to do this. But God says, speak life, speak vision, speak hope, Barbados, speak direction, Barbados. So what you want to see is what you're going to say. So say what you want to see, not just what you see. And we're going to do this for the country, but I want us to do that for our lives first. What do you want to see in your own life? What do I want to see in my life? Then what do I want to see in my community? What do I want to see in my parish? What do I want to see in my country? Say what you want to see, not just what you see. Ezekiel spoke in our story. And then something incredible happened. And do you know this is not just a Bible thing? It's life. It's life. These principles are in other religions. It's not a Bible thing. It's not a Christianity thing. It's life. It's life. Open your mouth and speak. When Ezekiel spoke, something incredible happened. And you know in your own lives too, that you have spoken and things have happened. And that's what's going to happen in this country. We're going to speak and things are going to turn around. And then something incredible happened. God backed him up. He spoke, the Spirit of God entered the bones. Do you understand bones that are dead and dry? Bone to bone. But we sing the song, the knee bone connected to the connected to the. But bone to bone, structure returned, muscle formed, skin covered, and then breath entered them. Because what you can't do with your words, God completes with his breath. But we have to speak first. We have to speak first. Some of you need to speak into your finances. And when you speak into say the positive, say something positive. When you do that, God completes it with his breath. And so that breath goes into your finances, breath into your marriage, breath in your own body, your physical body, breath in purpose, breath in your dreams. And God is saying, speak and I will breathe. Right? The scripture, that story Ezekiel says, the bones didn't just live. They stood up. A strong army. Not fragile, not broken, not weak, but strong. Right? And now this is something very powerful about growth. In nature, the richest soil is found where decay once happened. Where trees fell, where leaves are decomposed. If you do gardening, you know that. Where life is broken down because decay becomes fertilizer. Which means what broke you in 2025 is feeding what will grow you in 2026. What broke you in 2025 is feeding what will grow you in 2026. Stronger roots are coming, taller trees are coming, better fruit is coming in your life. So as we step into this new year, I know it is January 4 days into it. I really wanted to use this to encourage you, especially what I saw happening around me, the depression and the disillusionment. Do not despise the valley. Do not rush the process. Do not silence your voice. The valley is not the end of your story. It's the place where life is being rebuilt quietly, deeply, strongly. Speak into your year. Speak into your months. Speak into your life. Speak into your nation. And watch God meet you halfway. You do the speaking and he does the breathing. 2026 is not a year of loss. It is a year of growth for you and I and for this country. It's a year of restoration for you and I and this country. It's a year of strength. So embrace the valley. Something beautiful is happening and life is coming again. Something beautiful is happening. Something beautiful is happening. Something beautiful is happening and life is coming again. If you believe that, give a thumbs up. Put a thumbs up. Something beautiful is happening and life is coming again. Yes. 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 Folks, I know it might have been a little different what I did tonight, but for me, this is, we're a family. And if I see, if we're hurting, all of us, we're hurting together, right? And whether you go to church or not, it is what it is. It is life. It is life. This applies to everybody. And I started to just say to myself, something good is going to happen for me tomorrow. Start saying it from the time you go and lay down in your bed. Something good is going to happen to me tomorrow. Something good is going to happen to me. Yes. Yes, thank you. Something good is going to happen to me today. Yes? Yes, something good, something good, something good. We're not tolerating any suicides. We're not tolerating depression. It's not for you. Right? Disillusionment and frustration. Today, one of the things I saw today, and thank God Dave reminded me, I want to show you this. I'm going to finish now. I have another minute to finish, but if Dave is there, beautiful. When we were driving around today, and I think it was sent Andrew, Dave could correct me right in the chat, we saw this valley, and in the valley were these lilies, and they look black. They look like black lilies, and they were growing there. Let me move everything off, and so that you can actually see it. And listen, that's me there. I've got some to take home to plant, right? I didn't go on the people's property. It was on the roadside. I got these. But look, if you look, you see this in the distance there. Thanks, Dave. Thank you so much, Dave. Look, you see those? All of these were growing. And look at them. And I'm like, whoa, Dave, look at that. Those are black lilies. And as we got closer to them, we realized that they were dark purple. When we got closer to it, we saw water was running there. They are in the lowest part of the valley, but they're close to the water. And they were growing and looking so luscious. And that's how you are. That is how you are, guys. Don't give up in the valley. You're growing. Something good is happening. And tell yourself every day, something good is happening to me. Something good is happening to me. Believe that. Speak it out. Even if you don't have a job, you may not have your dream job. Don't give up. Don't give up. Even if you don't have your dream job. You're waiting on something else. You want something to happen, right? Don't give up. Don't give up. Don't you give up. All right? So tonight, that is my encouragement to everybody. There's always tomorrow. And there's always the light at the end of the tunnel. It's not just cliche, folks. Right? It's rare. It's rare. It's rare. All right. Well, tonight, guys, we have a very interesting program that we are going to um, embark on right now. And I want to, of course, welcome everybody. I didn't call your name. I didn't call your name tonight, but you know, oh, Mark Mavis is telling me, yes, a serious accident happened between Beulah and Six Roads tonight. And that's why you got to give God thanks alive. And we pray for those people who lost their loved ones. That is, yeah. Yeah. Please say a prayer for them, okay? Say a prayer for them, please. Yes, yes, yes. Have you shared yet? And have you liked yet? Did you share? All right. So tonight, folks, we are going to talk about Maduro. Everybody, I believe everybody who's watching knows, you know, what happened. We woke up yesterday. We woke up yesterday, Saturday, and where was I? I got up very early in the morning, and when I got up, I started to, you know, I said my prayers, and then I went, you know, checking the news, and I saw that, and I was like, oh my goodness, is that, first of all, is it real? Right? That was the first thing that I did. I checked to see if it was real. And when I saw that, I said, oh my word. And I got up my laptop and I started, you know, just to inform people about what was happening. All right. And for a lot of us, I mean, people are on different sides of the fence. They are, you know, you have those who their focus is more on whether or not it is a good idea. If it was, you know, it was legal, then some people said whether Maduro deserved it. Now you have people who are demonstrating on behalf of Maduro. You know, lots of different things are happening, lots of different responses. We've then some people, even inside Venezuela, there's some people who are shedding tears and they want Maduro to come back, but then quite a number of persons all over the world, really, and in Venezuela as well, they are dancing in the streets. Right, they're dancing in the streets. They're having a good time. They are thankful. Some are crying tears of joy. So there are lots of different responses to what has occurred. Right, but tonight we want to talk about the Caribbean. We want to talk about the Caribbean after Maduro. Right, is the Caribbean, are we entering into a new, some people might say a new order, world order? Is there a shift in the balance of power? What is really happening? I know we're seeing a lot of things on Facebook, on social media, and we're liking sometimes. Some of it now has turned into a joke. You know, people are making memes and all of that. But as a region, this is very serious, you know. Right? This is a very, very, very serious thing. So we need to ask ourselves some serious questions. And I have some people who are going to be joining me, and I was giving them some more time to join. I see one of my guests here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start. This is going to be quite interesting, guys. I need you all to like and share. I want to say up front that we do not want to get into discussing whether we don't on this show. We're not going to get into American politics. Okay, we are not. We have too many things to deal with here in the Caribbean. We're not getting into American politics. We are focusing right now on the Caribbean is what we're focusing on, right? So I need you all folks to watch the comment section and don't be quarreling with each other about Trump. You know, whether Trump is right or Trump, and we've gone past that. Please. So I have with me one of the, I mean, this guy is one of the most fearless people that I know. I get a lot of strength from him because I know that, you know, he is someone who loves his country dearly, loves Guyana dearly, lives in the US, gets a lot of, you know, pushback from his government, but he doesn't stop. And he doesn't even know it, but I do get a lot of courage from him just watching him and how he deals with them even on Facebook. And I have with me none other than Mr. Rickford Burke. He's an attorney. Good night, Mr. Burke.
Good night. Happy New Year to you and your listeners.
Great to see you. Happy New Year. You know, great 2026 to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Same to you. And I hope that, you know, you get all your desires, everything God desires for you in 2026. It's good to see that Barbados is still standing and going strong amidst the regional turbulence.
Yeah, yes, the regional turbulence. You are so right. And like us, you got up and you heard, whether it's Facebook or, you know, that what happened to video. Where were you when you heard? Where were you?
I was, well, the first word we got is that there was a U.S. operation that was circulating in the United States. And that, I was in bed actually chatting with a friend of mine in Guyana, and both of us said at the same time, here, the operation against Maduro started. And later on, within like 15 minutes after that, we heard Maduro was captured. As a matter of fact, and subsequently, the president of the United States made a post about it on Truth Social.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I was up monitoring and posting all night as we got videos from people in Venezuela and from the other press. I was, you know, in real time posting those videos on social media so as to give people an understanding of what's going on. And also refuting certain things. One of the things that bothered me is whenever they have these international crises, all of a sudden you see a bunch of white people who turn experts on these countries and talking a bunch of baloney. And I often wonder, like, why don't you talk to people from the country? If you want an expert on Venezuelan affairs, you must find an academic or something. But you had all of these people who are experts in Venezuela and Latin America and the Caribbean, and some of them don't know anything. So we had to be a group of us. We were on posting, refuting stuff, correcting misinformation, and it continues. You know, some people think that our region is like Africa. I don't know where they get these things, but all of a sudden you have people who are so-called experts in Latin American, South American, Caribbean affairs. And they are misleading people, especially the American public. And so it's good that we have shows like this, those of us who are from the Caribbean with knowledge of Caribbean affairs and Latin American affairs and, you know, Guyanese politics and Caribbean politics and the geopolitical politics that can bring light to the people, bring knowledge to people, and speak truth to power.
Yeah, you know, let's jump right into it, and I'm deliberately because I want us, because what I find is that Trump, the name Trump, is so divisive, Mr. Burke, and people find themselves on all different sides of this, and we want something happen in our region. And we need to stop and think about, you know, how it's going to affect us. So for years, CARICOM tried to stay neutral, you know that, between the U.S. and Venezuela, even when Guyana was dealing with their issue, right? But looking back now, the question is, was that strategy wise leadership? or avoidance of difficult but necessary decisions? Do you think that was the right strategy, or were they avoiding difficult or necessary decisions?
No, it was a terrible strategy. It was a horrible strategy.
Why?
Because if you, CARICOM projects itself as a progressive organization of CARICOM states, the Caribbean community, that represent the interests of the people of the Caribbean and small island states. CARICOM has a charter of civil societies. The revised Treaty of Chaguaramas outlined some very ambitious goals of CARICOM. CARICOM, the nature of CARICOM itself means that CARICOM projects multilateralism. It adheres to the international order, to international rule of law. Now, international law requires, and the UN Charter requires, that nations should not interfere in the territorial integrity or internal politics of other nations.
Yes.
Venezuela was in breach of international law, clearly. Venezuela was in breach of the CARICOM Charter of Civil Societies.
Correct.
Now, because Venezuela was supplying CARICOM with cheap oil, cheap fuel, they decided to have they issued vacuous statements about respecting international law and so on, but they never actively pushed back on Maduro claiming 2/3 of Guyana's territory. You had Ralph Gonsalves, when he was prime minister, who hosted the Argyle Accord, hosted the Argyle discussion, which produced the Argyle Accord. And Maduro immediately violated it, and violated international law, violated orders of the International Court of Justice. Gonzalez went to receive an award in Caracas. And at the podium where he was speaking was a Venezuela map that included 2/3 of Guyana. And he never objected. They were playing footsie with Maduro. They were playing footsie with Maduro. So CARICOM, I believe CARICOM is dead. There's very few leaders in CARICOM now that you could compare with those inspirational, visionary leaders that formed CARICOM, and even those that came after. You don't get that philosophical grounding in these leaders. They don't inspire anybody. It's a bunch of cowards. Everybody's pandering to their own interests and patronizing other world leaders that they think would help their nationals and their countries, and they're not being altruistic. They're not. To me, look at the posture of the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, attacking Antigua, attacking Dominica, because of what she perceived of them criticizing. You know, it was a completely erroneous basis that she was saying that their visas were being restricted. So I have my own problems with CARICOM. We don't have visionary leaders. CARICOM needs a retreat, and we need a reset. I have my own issues with Maduro. When I was on your program, I spoke about the legality of the bombing of these boats and the killing of these people. I think it is against international law. It's murder. I have my own feelings about Venezuela and their claims against Guyana. My position is that if there were ever to be intervention by the United States, I'm not condoning it, or I'm not proposing it, or I am not discussing the legality of it. But I'm saying if at any time the US were to intervene in Venezuela, they must ensure that Venezuela would never be in a position to attack Guyana. That's my view. As a Guyanese, that's our national interest, and that's my view. Now, whether or not what occurred on Saturday was lawful, it's another matter. I noticed that in 2012, under President Obama, Maduro was indeed indicted in New York. And now I'm seeing that the current Attorney General has announced a superseding indictment. Now, the manner in which he was abducted or captured is you know, we don't know all the details, so I can't comment on that yet.
We have to see. But let me ask you something. You know, I mean, when Venezuela's leadership is removed, Guyana is still next door. You know, Guyana is still next door. Trinidad is still next door. You can't escape geography. You're right there, right? Where does that leave Guyana? Where does that leave Trinidad, do you think? This has occurred, and this is where I wanted to move the conversation, because there was a problem with Guyana, where he wanted to take part of Guyana, and then he, you know, words were going between Trinidad and Venezuela. You're still next door. Are these countries, you think, about to get new security guarantees? You think that's what's going to happen now? Where does this leave these countries?
Well, security guarantees in terms of if they have good relations with the United States, and the United States is making a commitment to protect those countries, it's probably, I would say, yes. But in terms of Guyana, we have our own challenges with democracy. So I'm not even sure that about any security guarantees. I think for right now, the Guyana government is pretending to be supportive of America, but I think innately they're anti-American. In terms of what will happen to our countries, I think we have to monitor.
You said something and you jumped over that so quickly. You said that they're pretending to support America?
The Guyana government? Yeah, the People's Progressive Party in Guyana is inherently anti-American. They're communists. And their current support for the United States is out of political expediency. They're pretending to support America because, one, they need American protection. Two, they know the consequences of coming up against Donald Trump. Listen, look, over the years, let's look at the posture of the PPP since they're in government. Shetty Jagan was very anti-American. Bar Jagdeh was even worse. Bar Jagdeh's government supported the kidnapping of an American diplomat by their death squads. Bar Jagdeh's Minister of Foreign Affairs then, Priya Manichan, on the occasion of the U.S. anniversary celebration, independence celebration, the then Minister of Foreign Affairs went to the home of Bret Hart, who was then the American ambassador, and cursed him out. If I'm not mistaken, she may have been asked to leave, but she just went there on behalf of the government, of the president, and literally cursed out America. And that time, America was putting pressure on them, sanctioning them, because they'd created a narco state out of Guyana. They were killing people and involved in all sorts of criminal activities and corruption. And throughout the years, they have been very anti-American, America. So yeah, now what they are doing is skillfully, they have lobbyists. They're using the oil money for lobbyists. They're paying one lobbyist, I think, is about $60 million every quarter to lobby on behalf of the government. They're targeting United States citizens. They violated U.S. sovereignty. I don't think we've heard the last one of that, and send people into this country to attack those of us who speak out. They don't have respect.
So they don't. So you're saying that it's more the relationship there. They more know that they can't
convenience.
Get out of it. It's one of convenience. That's happening. But do you think, though, that they're going to get any security guarantees? Do you think that is what comes with the shift that has occurred? Maduro is no longer there. We're talking about after Maduro. Do you think Guyana is going to get that?
Well, Guyana has the security guarantees because, remember, you have large American investment in the oil industry in Guyana. ExxonMobil has all its oil platforms there. So the United States government will have to protect Exxon and their oil operations. So you'll have that security. But in terms of how this could affect Guyana, I think if there is further instability in Venezuela, further insecurity, and Venezuelans feel the need to start leaving Venezuela, you could have a mass exodus into Guyana, probably into Trinidad as well. I'm more focused on Guyana. And right now, in some regions in Guyana, you have more Venezuelans than Guyanese, or equal amount or a large amount. And that in itself, because of how violent Venezuelans are, how violent their gangs are, could lend to the destabilization of Guyana. So I think Guyana will have to monitor that. Now, does Guyana have the national security apparatus to monitor that situation? I don't think so. I don't think that Guyana has used their oil revenues very well. You're seeing ministers putting up multi-million-dollar mansions all across Guyana. But you're not seeing them buying more helicopters. There's no radar system in Guyana to detect foreign ships or airplanes coming into our jurisdiction. You know, the army is ill-equipped. The Guyana Army right now has about 3 helicopters. They have 1 marine patrol boat, and they have some little vessels akin to what I would call a fishing boat that ply the Guyana River. You know, it's a mess.
Yes.
I know some of my friends in the Guyana Defense Force would not like to hear me say this, but we had a situation. We had a situation recently where Venezuelans shot at Guyana soldiers that were supplying army officers on the border, and they shot 5 of them were shot. A lieutenant was shot in his head. They needed to be medevac. They could not be medevac because the aircraft wasn't working. They had no generators. So they were there in darkness with lamps and candles, you know, and that's the state. And while I don't blame the military, I think the government has to pour more resources. Guyana is developing. We have oil and gas now. We're getting a lot of money, and they have to increase Guyana security, improve drastically, overhaul, improve, and reform Guyana security apparatus. And they're nowhere close to doing that.
So, you know, listening to you, I could see exactly why you would think that this is just, they're performing. It's not real, because they do need America to, you know, they need the security that's coming from America. And so they will play along. Miss McCLEAN Maxine McCLEAN has joined us. She's a former Minister of Foreign Affairs here in Barbados, and one of our panelists. And I'm so happy that she's joined us. And we're just going to jump right into the conversation, Miss McCLEAN. The question that I was asking Mr. Burke was, what becomes of Trinidad? So he spoke on Guyana. I don't have any Trinity here, but what becomes of Trinidad? You know, geographically, they're still close to Venezuela. And, you know, you had the vice president who was, you know, saying she was persona non grata. And all these terrible things were being said across to Trinidad from Venezuela, accusing and so on. This has occurred. From where you sit, how does this affect Trinidad? Do you think that this Trinidad might think this is going to shore up my security? Or is it known that Delphi, I'm calling her Delphi, she's now in charge. She's now the acting president. Trinidad is going to feel a little vulnerable at this time, Ms. McCLEAN?
I really will not try to say anything definitive, because to attempt to answer that question in isolation is going to be an extremely dangerous thing to do. What becomes of Trinidad is a function of what becomes of Venezuela. We do not know. And I mean, you said we want to focus on the Caribbean, which we have to. But what becomes of us, and I would say CARICOM, because I'm not going to talk about Trinidad in isolation, even though the Prime Minister of Trinidad has been kind of isolating herself by some of her comments, although she tried to walk them back after the event that took place with the taking out of Maduro. She certainly said, I had nothing to do with that. And, you know, we heard all the protestations, etc. But the reality is we do not know what is going to happen to Venezuela in the short to medium term. The relationship between Venezuela and Trinidad, which I think you're talking about, is a function of the situation in Venezuela. If you look at what's happening in Trinidad, just before Prime Minister Prasad Bisesar came into office, there was an agreement signed between Venezuela and Trinidad with oil and gas because Trinidad's supplies are running low.
Yes.
That was canceled. But you have a situation in Trinidad right now where, for example, they have what is bordering on a foreign exchange crisis because of the situation with their industry. I mean, they are now trying to move into things like tourism and so on. So I think we have to be very careful in trying to come up with in a what I would call a short comment as to what will happen, because right now I certainly as I look on and listen to what transpired and the explanations given, I am trying to come to terms. I have my own idea and I will share that. I'm trying to come to terms with what the Americans via the president is saying and has said about his mission into Caracas. We heard a lot prior to what transpired over the night when the president was taken out. We heard a lot about drugs and so on. But then I sat in the chair that I'm sitting in right now, and I heard the president of the United States said that they're going in there for oil and they're going to be making a whole set of money. So the question really and truly is, what has been the relationship between Trinidad and Tobago and Venezuela specifically? And how did it change with the change of government in Trinidad? And how did they try to reverse that? And what will the situation be? And I would say to you, it is in flux because it depends very much on what the government is saying. The other thing that the president, because you cannot, and I would say this categorically, you cannot divorce a discussion of the implications for Trinidad. You've asked me specifically about Trinidad, but for the region and for CARICOM and its member states, you cannot divorce that from an understanding of what has been said, because until we see action, we can only operate on the basis of what has been said. What has been said by the officials of the United States. Now, President Trump said that we will be running Venezuela. What does that mean? Running it to what effect and with whose interest? So we have I'm not gonna get into a lot of speculation because I think that we can go down a very wrong path. My concern for Trinidad and Tobago is that it's stuck its neck out. I've seen the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago operate previously. You remember her famous words about not being the ATM of CARICOM and so on. She has stuck her neck out in a way that sought to separate herself. But I think that all of these will happen because I want to go back to something that RICKFORD said, which is true. We have a cadre of political leaders in the Caribbean who are very transactional. They are not driven by any abiding philosophical grounding as to what they want to achieve for the region. And what that says to me is that because of that lack of a grounding, when I was a youngster, I was around to see Carifta and so on, all these things, we could sit back and understand what the founders of Carifta and CARICOM and so on, what drove them, what their interests were, what their desires were for the people of the Caribbean. Notwithstanding some of the, how I would say, some of the ways that some of them got lost in the way, but we could stand up and know what Errol Barrow, Forbes Burnham, Michael Manley in Jamaica, Eric Williams in Trinidad stood for and so on. But I have not heard articulated by any of the current leadership in any substantial or substantive way what is their vision. You hear some buzzwords and so on, but nobody can stand up and say this is what they believe in. Nobody can point to something that they wrote or some major speech that they have delivered. So I would say, Marcia, certainly from my perspective, what is there for Trinidad is a lot of ambiguity, and it is going to be made more ambiguous by the stance and positions taken by the current administration in that country, as articulated by the Prime Minister.
Thank you, Ms. McCLEAN. I'm seeing Honorable Coretta McDonald in the chat. I know we had wanted her to be here with us as well, Mr. Burke. I know she's traveling, but she still came in the chat. And she said the whole issue, she's from Guyana. To those of you who are watching, you don't know who she is. This whole issue with Maduro will have serious implications for all of us within the Caribbean belt, more especially Guyana, Trinidad, and Barbados. Say Barbados. The government of these territories have been so sucked into themselves that they have not seriously taken into effect how these actions and non-actions of theirs will affect their territory. I think this is what a bit of what you guys are saying. Coretta says as well, CARICOM, like I would say, she said it's gone. And I would just ask you guys a short answer on that before we move the discussion along. We have too many weak leaders who are not prepared to hold together and stand for what is right. RICKFORD, do you think after all of what has transpired, not just yesterday, but in this whole fiasco with Maduro, from their, as you said, their indecisiveness concerning Maduro, the whole thing, do you think that when this is over, when the dust is settled, we will still have CARICOM?
We'll still have CARICOM, but it will be a shell. The CARICOM leaders are not only weak, they're cowards. Listen, I proposed that this is our region. I kept calling for CARICOM leaders to meet with Trump and Rubio and be intermediaries, interlocutors, or whatever it is with Venezuela. They could have gotten some sort of result if all of them, the CARICOM leaders, or they selected the bureau, the CARICOM heads bureau, to represent the rest of the heads of government conference, and they demanded meetings, and they did shuttle diplomacy. It would elevate them in the region, in the international community. They could have done that. They did nothing. They could have done the same thing with the situation in Guyana and Venezuela. They did nothing. They allowed Kamala Prasad Bissessar to go out on a limb, as Ms. McCLEAN just said, and put all of these radar, whatever, in Trinidad. CARICOM should be unified. They should have one position, right? And if they had demonstrated some leadership, look at the statement they put out yesterday. A bunch of cowards. How are we going to respect them? They put out a statement that said nothing. They could have, again, called for a meeting with Trump. Tell us what's going on. But you know what? They're scared. They're scared that they get their visas revoked or whatever. You know, some of them said, yeah, revoke my visa, I don't care. Lie. They care about their visas. They care about how America perceives their government. So I continue to think that they missed the moment to demonstrate leadership in the national community. They can still do it. Right now, we want to know what's happening to the region. How is Venezuela going to be governed? What do you mean by U.S. is going to run Venezuela? What are the implications for international law? All of these boats are being bombed. CARICOM leaders said nothing. They didn't even say, well, let me meet with Rubio to find out what is happening. These are I understand some people from Trinidad were killed in these bombings. The Trinidad government said nothing. She doesn't care. Why? Because she wants to be so closely aligned with Trump or the U.S. Regime that I don't know why, but I have a difficulty with these CARICOM leaders. As I said, unapologetically, they're lazy, they're weak, and they're cowards. And because of that, people in the region will suffer. Guyana is in a very unique position. Venezuela was at war with Guyana. As we speak right now, Venezuelan troops are on Guyanese soil. What did CARICOM do? Nothing. So I'm saying the way to go with CARICOM is, one, they must have a unified position. Two, they must seek clarification and demand evidence from the United States about these people who are being bombed in these boats, over 100 people killed. What is the legal basis for it? CARICOM should have that because it's our region. What international law permits the United States government to, in international waters, bomb people because they're supposedly trafficking or transporting drugs to the United States? Those boats can't even go 1 more hour. How is it going to reach the United States? And what is the legal basis for what they did in Venezuela? All of these things CARICOM leaders should be asking. It's our region. And you know what? Today is Venezuela. Tomorrow it could be Guyana. The next day could be Trinidad. We want to reestablish international order. And CARICOM leaders should lead the way in demanding the United Nations Security Council address this matter, and the United States government meet with the United States leadership. CARICOM leaders should do that. And the fact that they have not done that, the fact that they have not demanded answers, they're failed.
Yeah.
They have failed.
Yeah. Miss McCLEAN, in short, what do you think is going to happen to CARICOM? I know we are all speculating here. We have no information, but that's what we're discussing.
I don't know what you mean is short, but I will try to be. Let me start by answering.
I was about to apologize for not being short.
No, that's okay. Let me answer. Let me start by answering Mary Figueroa's question. Why does CARICOM even exist? Recall earlier that Rickford spoke about multilateralism. Think of any one of the member states of CARICOM by itself. I mean, Guyana now, and I use Rickford's words again, it's probably in a special situation given its size and resources, but even still is a relatively small state in terms of its developments, is notwithstanding its resources. We cannot survive in this world on our own. We can pretend that we can, but we cannot. And I do not think that CARICOM is gone. It is not necessarily functioning as it is, but I would use 3 words: the idea, the ideal, and the reality. The idea of a unified organization, an entity which brings together these little small island states and a couple larger states, which are not islands, Guyana, Suriname, and Belize. Those are, but outside of that, so because of that smallness, our voice coming together is more effective. Rickford pointed out about us talking to the United Nations. It is through multilateral efforts for the most part that we have been able to draw attention to our issues. And if we speak, now I would quickly say it is not possible to be totally unified because we are separate states with different realities and different interests. But of course, there is significant common interests or common ground which we can pursue. But the challenge is that when it suits, especially current leaders, when it suits them to want to be part of CARICOM and to have CARICOM serve the interest, they do that. When it does not, they separate themselves in a way that is not, I would describe as the ideal. So there is a future for CARICOM. It's not going to go away because, as I said, there's so many benefits and actually achievements out of it. But what we see often is what people refer to as differences, but recognize that we are trying to coordinate, for in this case, foreign policy and international relations for 14 member states or whatever the case may be, with varying interests. But at the same time, I don't think that we have often on matters like this sat to seriously negotiate an agreed or common position to take us forward. But it is going to be with us. Coretta was saying unity is the elephant in the room. Unity is a function, again, of the pooling of individual efforts and based on some common pursuit, etc. But I don't want to go into any extended explanation.
Well, it's I think it's important, although we don't know what it is when the president of the US says, we are going to run Venezuela, we're going to do this, we don't have any details. It was only yesterday. But I want to kind of move the conversation along, Rickford, and ask, for you, right? Do you see what opportunities you see? Any possible opportunities? As I said, we don't know the way it's going to be set up. We don't know what is going to. But looking at it, what could be? Do you see any possible opportunities for the Caribbean, right? In this power shift, any advantages? This moment could create for us as a Caribbean, as a bloc?
Well, one, I'm going to go to Guyana, and I'm Guyanese and unapologetically Guyanese. So I'm going to represent our selfish interests here. And I'm going to say one good thing is that Venezuela probably for a number of decades or years would not be able to threaten Guyana. As you recall, Venezuela last year took some significant steps towards invading Guyana. They held elections for 2/3 of Guyana, appointed a governor and all this nonsense in violation of international law and the orders of the International Court of Justice. So in terms of Guyana, I think Guyana can now be, you know, I'm not saying that we would be at ease, but we are a little relieved that Guyana is not going to be invaded by Venezuela, because I think that Venezuela had intentions of invading Guyana. I think one of the opportunities from this is we can try to encourage CARICOM unity. Ms. McCLEAN just said, basically, we because of national interest, we probably can't be all 100% unified. But there's some basic goals in foreign policy and democracy that we can use to unify. And I think in this case now, CARICOM is a bloc. We now see what the United States has done. I'm sure this is frightening to some CARICOM governments. This is bullyism. This is, if you don't do what I say, you don't comply with us, it's almost colonialism, right? We're going to come in and take out your head of government. Now, I'm not defending Maduro, because Maduro is a dictator and he's a tyrant. My issue is you have a similar government in Guyana. But because they have lobbyists and they can, you know, you utilize their lobbyist influence to talk to Marco Rubio, the focus is not on what they did. Listen, we, as everybody knows by now, we held a conference in Washington to highlight racism, corruption in Guyana. And the Guyana government, the vice president, threatened members of Congress. And he said he wouldn't dare do it to Trump. Any member of Congress, Bart Jagdev said it, I have the tape. Any member of Congress that goes to that conference, he will deal with them. The Attorney General of New York told them that if they continue to threaten me and send people to try to kill me, they will be prosecuted and they will come to Guyana and get them. They hired a lobbyist to attack her. Now, CARICOM sit back and did nothing. So we now got to recalibrate CARICOM. We have to force them as CARICOM nationals. And I've been saying this a long time. We have to, all of the nationals from all of the countries that make up CARICOM, we have to force our governments. It's not something within our political culture that we do. We don't force governments to take positions that represent the interests of the people, almost regionally and nationally. We don't do that. We have to start doing it. Because if those governments don't protect us, for instance, look at the restrictions on Antigua and Dominica and St. Lucia.
Yes.
Right? Why the government, knowing that the United States had security concerns with this program of selling their citizenship or whatever it is to these people, the people of those countries should have objected to it. Why wait until the United States forced those governments? How are the people of St. Vincent and Antigua and St. Lucia and Dominica benefiting from this program? How would the masses? So we now have to look and see what our governments are doing, how they're performing, and force them to ensure that they govern in the interest of the people and they don't govern in the interest of those who are governing. And so coming back to the question is, what are opportunities? We now have an opportunity to, one, recalibrate CARICOM, to re-examine how CARICOM operates, to ensure that CARICOM now is equipped to deal with issues like this. Maybe CARICOM should have, well, we have mechanisms in place, but they don't function. The CARICOM Bureau, right? They should be more proactive. CARICOM should build better relationship with the United States. The Caribbean is the United States third border, right? We should have, the CARICOM leaders should have met, as I said before, they should have met with the United States, find out what is the evidence of these bombings, find out how we could resolve these issues before the citizens are punished for the actions of the government. I don't agree with that at all. And CARICOM leaders now must act more with Congress. There are a lot of things that we could do. So I think unity, as both Coretta and Ms. McCLEAN spoke of just now, we need better unity in CARICOM. CARICOM should have already sent some heads of government to meet with Mrs. Pusset Basassar to try to rein her in. Because it is, what is going to happen is divide and conquer. The United States is going to realize that Trinidad is willing to work with them. So they're going to play Trinidad against Guyana, Trinidad against Antigua, etc. And what they're going to do is bribe Trinidad. They're going to give Trinidad a lot of resources, maybe. I'm sure that's what they're going to do because of this radar that they have there. So CARICOM must work together. Let us use this opportunity to bring CARICOM together. Our regional leaders must do more to represent the interests of the people, and CARICOM must actively work to solve regional issues before they get out of hand. They completely failed with regard to Guyana and Venezuela.
Yeah. Interesting. Miss McCLEAN, the same question for you, because, you know, as I said, we don't know, we at the moment, we don't know what this is going to be. Nobody knows. It's only a day old, but any possible benefits that might come out of it, say for Barbados. Let's start at Barbados and then go out to the rest of the Caribbean. Any possible benefits?
If according, and as I said, I have to stick with what has been identified as the intention. We were not part of the Petro-Caribbean arrangement in terms of the sourcing of oil, at concessionary rates and on specific terms. That Barbados never participated. Part of that had to do
with this during Chavez time as well?
We have never participated.
Right.
We have
I just was trying to clarify that.
We have never participated, and the reason for that was because we were sending our oil to Trinidad as part of an arrangement to have that refined, and so we had an arrangement with Trinidad. It is highly unlikely that the arrangement that was made available to the OECS and so on would be made by the Americans, because it is the kind of thing that the Americans would label as socialist, and because these were concessionary terms. So it is highly unlikely that you would get those terms provided to the region. So I presume that certainly it wouldn't be any better than already obtained based on all that you hear. So in terms of what opportunities are created there, I think Rickford correctly identified that where there's a perception that some member states are supportive. I mean, you remember that at one point the Americans were shopping around for the location of certain facilities as they prepared for this exercise. I think they would have spoken to Grenada and so on. And no firm decision was taken. Then Trinidad and Tobago agreed to locate equipment in Tobago as opposed to Trinidad. I don't know in terms of, well, I've seen a lot of explanations, but those can come another time. So I am not sure that there are going to be any immediate benefits. Now, one of the things that we have to understand is that over the last post-independence, for the most part, the Americans would essentially have seen us as peaceful allies. You know, we talk about a zone of peace. We have been peaceful. We offered no threat. There were no major issues. And so there was no major pressure to provide the countries of the region with any major support. You know, people always say, you know, they like to use the expression, we were in the US backdoor and so on. But if you look at it, one of the reasons why China, for example, was able to come into the region with their kind of economic diplomacy was because we were essentially neglected by our closest neighbor, the US. We would have gotten, so if you look at the value of technical support and all of these things, you would realize that I think that the idea was we don't have to worry about those small island states and the other member states of CARICOM. As I say, the three non-island members, Guyana, Suriname, and Belize. So there was never pressure to provide support. And I am not sure that pressure is there. I mean, because even with what I would call the entrance of China into the region, you did not see any major push of the Americans to counter that.
Yes.
And I don't know that that will change. What it is saying to me is that in the eyes of, and we're talking about the current administration, but I would say in the eyes of successive administrations of the United States, the region was not seen as any major threat, and therefore there was no need to engage in any major form of appeasement. Now, of course, the relationship that we have with North America being the US and Canada, has a lot to do with our diaspora populations. So in essence, what has been important for the region for decades would be things like remittances, but that is not government support. That is where people are, living and working in this case, the US, or we could extend it to Canada and of course elsewhere. And they decide to support their families. Now, a country may say, if we didn't give them the opportunity, but I don't know if you've been following other developments, because beyond the development that took place in Caracas recently, we have been hearing of, I would use the word threat or an intention exposed by the president that soon persons holding dual citizenship will have to make a choice. And I think it is highly unlikely that a Barbadian or Jamaican or Guyanese or Trinidadian or Tobagonian living in the United States for the last 30 years would opt to give up their American citizenship in favor of the original citizenship. So if something like that is followed through, there are other developments on the horizon that create not so much an opportunity in the first instance, but a potential threat in the short term. So when we start to look at these relations, again, I know that we are focusing on an event and so on, but this event has to be contextualized. And that is an issue. So for me, those are the things that I'm looking at. I'm looking beyond the immediate, because we saw this and we were hearing about drug trafficking. Now, as former foreign minister, Minister of Foreign Trade, I can tell you that there were protocols in place where when there were suspicions or clear evidence of drugs moving, countries, there were protocols that were followed where countries would notify us. And once they took their action, information would be provided on what was on the, how much, whether it was cocaine, marijuana, whatever the case may be, how much was seized, who was arrested, where it was destined for. And so there was that exchange of information. What we had were suggestions that these things were happening, but no evidence was provided. What it says to me is that there is a sense that we can do this because we are mighty. And as we heard, our government, our heads of state and heads of government have sat by and have not made demands that, look, we already have ways to manage this. Why are you deviating from that?
Yes. So, Rickford, I'm thinking of Guyana. You said that there was an entire, I don't know if you call it a village, that seemed to even have more Venezuelans living there than Guyanese. Do you think that might be an advantage? Is that a benefit that might occur if just if everything goes the way that they are saying, you know, those that are outside of Venezuela, some of them say they're coming back. They want to get back because they have about 8 million people outside of Venezuela. Do you think that by chance this might deal with some of the migration issues? Is there any possibility there?
Possibility of what?
The migration issues, where you have a lot of Venezuelans who are going over into Guyana, into Trinidad. There's some of them even here. They're all over the world. Do you think, you love Guyana, I want to know, do you think that it is a possibility that you might, you know, they might decide to go home, or your borders will become, you know, they will come over the borders? What do you think?
Well, I think they'll want to go back to Venezuela if there's stability in Venezuela and there's viable life, economic viability for them and their families. We'll have to wait and see what happens. It largely depends on how governance evolves in Venezuela. I heard the Secretary of State, the President of the United States, saying that the U.S. will govern Venezuela until they can have elections and a new government could be established in Venezuela. I'm not sure how long that's going to take. That could take 3 years, 3 months, 2 decades, or whatever it is. I suspect that there's going to be a period of prolonged instability in Venezuela. I don't foresee the United States putting boots on the ground, U.S. troops in Venezuela to help with security and law and order. It will have to be the same security forces that are there now, maybe with different leadership. But I don't see Venezuela becoming a democracy overnight and creating opportunities for the well-being of its citizens. So, no, you have to bear in mind that those people in Guyana did not come to Guyana as refugees. The government of Guyana actively brought them there and invited them to come because they wanted to put them on the voter rolls. And so you have in Region 1, which is Burima-Waimi, which is at the top of the peak of the Guyana map. You have, based on reports, as I said earlier, you have probably more Venezuelans there than Guyanese. And what that happens is they're going to put a strain on public service. Guyanese themselves don't have adequate service from the government. Much less when you add that region probably had about 30,000 people. Now they probably have about 60,000.
Wow.
With all the Venezuelans there. Where are they going to find the services to provide all these people? So I think that it would be good if there's stability in Venezuela and the people could go back home. I suspect that is not going to happen anytime soon.
Anytime soon. Well, we're gonna we only have, my goodness, another 2 minutes in this segment. I'll add 5 more to discuss this part. This part, I mean, I don't know if we can say anything much about it, but I read in 2 newspapers today. I don't know if they can get it up on the screen as soon as possible, but I am seeing where Maduro himself. I need to make sure that I can find this thing here. Maduro, they're saying, is now, calling names. That names of Caribbean leaders, Caribbean politicians are now. Let me move this, because this is important. Do you think this is just being salacious or it's real? I mean, I know we're just talking because we don't know. But Caribbean politicians implicated in Maduro's criminal charges. I saw this in The Guardian, and I saw this also in St. Vincent Times. All right, and this only came out about 3 o'clock today.
Unless they can provide serious evidence, I wouldn't give it any credence. I mean, Maduro is a drunken man. He is going to do anything and say anything.
Wow. Miss McCLEAN, any thoughts on this? I mean, because he's alive. He's alive. But we don't know what.
Let me put it. I mean, I think he will say things. No, as to the veracity and so on. And I would say that if any Caribbean politicians have something to worry about, then so be it. If they're clean and there's no evidence.
Oh no, Dave, we can't play this. We can't put this up. I'm sorry.
If they have nothing to worry about,
yes,
then you know, you can declare my hands are clean, you know. But I wait to see what will come of that, because at the end of this whole exercise, if and I'm just gonna use a general illustration. If a head of state or an official like that is arrested and he or she had some kind of relationships with fellow leaders, what does that person have to lose by calling the names? But if people have nothing to fear, then but it is the kind of thing that you would hear. You know, a person is arrested and then you hear the expression, the person is singing like a canary. So we have to wait and see. You know, but
that's the most we could say. We gotta wait and see.
We gotta wait and see.
But you know,
Maduro got to, as she said, as Ms. Green said, the veracity of what is being said. We don't even know if that is true. If those reports are true that Maduro is calling it, we don't even know if that's true. And if he is, he has to provide evidence.
Yeah.
He has to provide evidence. He just can't go and say things. So
yes. You know, of course, you know, online, you know, us Caribbean people are, I see a whole flyer was made out to tell Dave, don't put that flyer up here and get me in any problems.
But you know, Marcia, the one thing that we're talking about all of this, but who is the president of Venezuela at the moment now that he's been removed? His vice president.
Yep.
Delcy Rodriguez. This vice president is the president. I found it interesting because you see, when that transition happens, that will probably influence what happens in terms of our relationship with Venezuela. I mean, you know, the proximity of the Guyana, for example, and Venezuela, as we know, share boundary. They have long-standing issues of border issues and so on. But the expectation was that the opposition leader, remember she was Nobel Prize winner and all of that, would have taken over. But the president was very clear in his statement that, what was it he said, that she's not popular, something to that effect.
She doesn't have the support of the majority of the people.
Something to that effect.
And Mark Rubio said that most of her people are out of the country.
Well, you know, so they said, but again, at the same time, the Supreme Court of the country made a decision. Now, we haven't gotten into that because you have been very specific in your focus on the region. But one of the implications.
Right, and we don't have much time left. That's the other thing too.
All right, but I think, though, Marcia, is important that I make this.
I know, but I'm just letting you know, we literally have 2 minutes.
You know, if we're talking about this issue, otherwise we're kind of halfway talking about.
That's okay. We could go in deep another night, but we have gone.
Okay, let it go. Yeah.
All right. So
because we have had a very incomplete discussion.
Yes, we have, because the topic is we have covered the topic that we came on here to discuss tonight.
But I'm saying, even in the context of that, it has been incomplete. But we
can do a part two. Marcia, we can do a part two.
We only have an hour, and we're not going to do everything in the hour.
But in that hour, Marcia, I think it's important that we properly contextualize these things. I feel very uncomfortable having certain discussions if you don't properly contextualize. So I have to put that on the table.
Well, that's okay. I thought that we did what we came to do tonight, Ms. McCLEAN. And as we close tonight, I'm going to ask to the both of you, what would you want to say if you had, say, 30 seconds to speak directly to Caribbean citizens that are watching tonight? What truth would you tell them? What would you want to say to them in this 30 seconds with the little bit that we know between yesterday and today, plus some of what was happening? Rickford.
I would say they should force their governments to represent their interests more competently. I think CARICOM has been missing throughout all of this. we should have been exercising influence as you know, the people within the direct region where this conflict is occurring, and we want to see CARICOM leaders play a more significant role in guiding the region towards peace, and stop chatting nonsense about zone of peace, but not doing anything to ensure actual peace.
Yes. Okay. Ms. McCLEAN, what in this 30 seconds, what would you say to the Caribbean citizens that are watching tonight?
I would say to them that when we look at issues like this, we need to properly understand how our systems work. And if our people do not understand, then we can be confused by our own leaders who fail to look after the interests of the people. And to my friend who was asking about the host, I am not the host, but I sit on a program, and I think that I've come to this program all the time. And I believe that the host allows me to express myself, and I feel very strongly about something.
That's fine. I have no problem with it. As
I
I
saw
said,
a comment there, so I thought I had to respond. You know me very well, Master.
Yes, yeah. But I just want to know that I thank you so much, RICKFORD, for coming on tonight. The objectives of what I wanted to achieve tonight is achieved, and we have I have some other people that are going to come on other nights. So we have a whole set of things that we are planning in this time. Thank you so much, Ms. McCLEAN, for your time. Thank you, RICKFORD. And
Thank you very much. Have a good night and Happy New Year to you all. Ms. McCLEAN,
Yeah,
Happy New Year.
Take care. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yes, God bless. Bye-bye. God bless. Yes. Well, that's it, guys, for tonight concerning what's happening in Venezuela. And they're right there. They speak Spanish, but they're our brothers and sisters, still part of the Caribbean. I think Mr. BABB has joined us. Good night, Mr. BABB.
Good night and Happy New Year. Happy New Year, Miss McCLEAN. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm okay. I've had a difficult day, but that's not part of the show. So, no, let me say, well, I won't say it. If you've been following the news, I had some concerns, but those concerns have been resolved.
I saw them. And I'm glad that they have been resolved. And it's not very easy when you have to deal with those type of things and anxious moments, you know.
Yeah.
But I want to say Happy New Year to all those persons who are viewing as well. And what a year we have started in the year on the hot trot with so much to talk about.
It's so much and so little time, you know.
Yes.
And tonight we want to go straight in because we're a bit over time here. Into what has started, the year for Barbados started off with we had what I would consider some people would consider it a mass shooting, where 10 persons were shot, 9 were taken to the hospital, and I think that is sending a lot of shockwaves throughout Barbados, really. Because it was supposed to be a cruise. Those of you who are watching, you might not know what had happened, was that it's a cruise that someone put on, and people went and had a good time. And when they got off the cruise, there seemed to be some gang warfare. It appears that is what happened. One gang against the next gang, and they were firing shots. And there are people critical in the hospital, some have minor wounds. But, at the end of it, 10 persons were shot, 9 were hospitalized. They had to actually close down the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. This is a start of the year, Mr. BABB. When you heard of that, what I don't know if you were even here, but when you heard of that, what went through your mind?
Any situation as this is very disturbing because I believe the cruise would have attracted based on who held it, would have attracted a large gathering. And if there was shooting, you're lucky that there weren't more people who were injured. I am saying that we have seen in the past the empowerment of these gangs or criminals by a government who would have believed that offering a sum of money, substantial sum of money will keep them at bay. On the other hand, we have another party who sat down with some creditable persons and put together a document. Whereas one party decided we can throw money at a situation, another party decided that they're going to sit down, the Democratic parties decide that they're going to sit down and come up with strategies, look at the situation, and try to put long-term plans in place. The money has not worked. I'm not aware that the government has reached out to the Democratic Labour Party to have access to that document, or even if they have it, because it was in circulation, that they have attempted to use any suggestions there to mitigate against any of these situations that we've seen.
But you know, the Prime Minister said in a press conference that you know, she's proposing that she's going to start a domestic terrorism legislation. And you know, my question to you, Ms. McCLEAN, is: do we already have anti-terrorism laws? Do we already have those in Barbados? And you know, are there any clauses that already deals with this kind of activity, criminal activity?
I would have to check to see if we have any legislation specifically titled anti-terrorism legislation. I know we have a range of legislation which should address, you know, the kind of behavior, violence, and so on. But I would have to look, and I would have to hear from her, you know, what is the scope of that legislation. I think part of the challenge we need it. We've heard about anti-gang legislation, which is needed. Mr. Thorne has been speaking about this, and she's finally indicated that they will look at that. But I think outside of that, we have to look at the environment in which this violence is taking place, beyond putting legislation to deal with the matters after the fact is important. I think just, you know, ALWYN made reference to the work that was done by the DLP. I can tell you that the Prime Minister made a public announcement to the effect that she was going to read it one weekend. So I know she has a copy of the document. So that information is there as to what she will do with it. But I wait to see, in fact, I would look to see if there's any such legislation in the region, and what it looks like. And then I would be able to see what legislation we have that approximates that. But off the top of my head, I can't think of something that would be equivalent to what she's talking about, or what I imagine she's talking about, because we haven't heard any broader explanations other than the title, you know.
Yeah. Well, I did a little research, and I saw that Barbados already has anti-terrorism laws. In fact, they went and they did in 2019, some amendments were actually made to this law. And there's a section 3 that says, according to the section 3, terrorism includes any act that has a purpose by its nature or context to intimidate the public or compel a government or international organization, to do or refrain from doing something, and it must be intended to cause death or serious bodily harm, serious risk of public safety, major property damage involving public risk, or serious disruption of an essential service. So yes, Barbados law already contains the public intimidation or the panic concept. If she's going to talk about, domestic terrorism, because domestic terrorism, just the word terrorism has within it that element of panic and seeking to push fear in the community and so on. So it seems as though, Ms. McCLEAN, that it is still there and it was amended.
What's the name of the legislation you're looking at? What's the name of the piece of legislation?
The Anti-Terrorism Act.
Okay.
The Anti-Terrorism Act is actually there. Section 3.
Oh yeah, 2019-34. Okay, that's
yes.
an amendment.
and it was amended. So that means it would have been amended after they came in, Mr. Bob.
Right.
So one is where you have to wonder if is this about posturing or is it serious? Do we already have laws on the books that would actually to deal with that? Any thoughts?
I think that on speaking as the Prime Minister do off the cuff, she would have said that in an effort to come across as if she was prepared to do something about it, not knowing that in 2019 that her own government would have done some amendments. So it was at that point in time where you speak off the cuff, you're sure the persons that you're ahead of this, you're getting ahead of the situation, and that would have happened. But then on that same day, I believe I saw an article where the commissioner of police is saying that there's nothing to fear. And if you're saying there's nothing to fear, why then about the same incident that we have to look at anti-terrorism laws, or domestic terrorism laws. So I'm trying to put the two together because they were speaking about the same incident.
So the question is going to be really, is this something? Is this a political statement? What is it really? And just to bring everybody up to date, after the mass shooting in Bridgetown was on New Year's Day, injured 10 people, Prime Minister Mia Mottley said Barbados will introduce domestic terrorism legislation to address violence intended to spread fear and panic. And what I was just reading is that we already have a law. The Anti-Terrorism Act already covers that. And that act came into being in 2002, but it was amended in 2019. So it is already there. The PM framed this as going beyond ordinary criminal charges like murder or assault, stressing that deliberate target in public spaces requires more than standard law. And so we want to ask the Prime Minister, as Mr. BABB is saying, did you know that you already have that law on the books? It's already there. Is it probably then, Ms. McCLEAN, a matter of enforcing that law?
Well, yeah, I think, but before we even talk, I am asking the Prime Minister, as former Attorney General, if she didn't remember that, because in 2002, she might have been the Attorney General. I would have to go back and check my dates, but she certainly would have been part of the cabinet that passed this legislation. And she would have been head of cabinet that passed the amendments. And the question, therefore, have you forgotten that? And if not, if you haven't forgotten, you needed to explain to us what was the basic difference between what you're saying you want to do and what is already on the books. The issue of enforcement is important, but the question is there something beyond enforcing what is there? In other words, is there another missing part to this that you didn't explain? Or did you say that because you felt it was necessary? And I agree with ALWYN that she might have been speaking off the cuff, forgetting that in 2002, she would have been part of a cabinet that passed that. And she was head of cabinet when they made the amendment. And so tell us then, what is the difference between them? Because persons like me might not remember, but given your pivotal role in those two positions, you certainly should. And if you're coming to talk to us, you should be doing your research as Prime Minister and former Attorney General.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if they think that the law that is there, the Anti-Terrorism Act, was weak, why wasn't it reformed in 2019? They went and they amended it. Why didn't you address it then? You're now, and from what we're seeing, all of that is already covered. Now, moving the conversation on a bit, now. The question that we have to ask, Mr. BABB, is if we're going to call it terrorism, does it really fit the reality? Let's look at it. Look at the shooting. The shooting linked to a long-standing personal dispute. This is what they're saying, that this is something that, between them, revenge and so on. Right? It doesn't clearly meet typical definitions of terrorism.
No.
Right? Terrorism involves political ideologies, you have social goals, etc. Right?
Yes.
I
believe so too. I believe that what we saw and what is being bandied around social media is a clear indication of gang war around, and there is a call for anti-gang legislation. I do not know why the Prime Minister is constantly sidestepping that need for anti-gang legislation. I will move to the point of terrorism. And if you're thinking that this has reached that point, or it was had the potential of reaching that point, why then would you have thrown so much money, millions of dollars behind it? Why would you have not seek to nip it in the bud quite early if you believe that the warring factions could get to the stage where the entire Barbados or this entire country would be affected, that innocent bystanders will be no longer be able to walk the streets in fear because we are being targeted. Because terrorists don't make the difference between the difference between the innocent or the guilty. They go in and they seek to send a message to the government. This is what we are about. I think this is a gang violence that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, the standard definition that I found, I don't know if Ms. McCLEAN want to add anything to this, but the standard definition that I found for terrorism is violent acts committed to further an ideological goal driven by domestic influences. So that's domestic terrorism, and it's political, social, racial, etc. Criminal disputes over money or revenge don't fit this, right? So there is a big question there on why we're calling it domestic terrorism. What is it that we want to? Do you think that the government wants to achieve here? Is this a genuine, interest or thrust at taking this thing seriously? Or is there some political gain in it? Any comment there, Ms. McCLEAN? Because it's clearly domestic terrorism.
Like you, I think that you've just correctly defined terrorism and domestic terrorism. The difference then, the international, is where the influences come from outside and so on. As ALWYN said, we are talking about violence, gang violence, and so on. I call on the Prime Minister that when you toss these words around, you need to define them. And you see, it's important that you define them, because you're not only talking to locals, you're also talking to people who want to do business in Barbados, who want to come here as tourists. And they have notions of what is meant by terrorism. You understand? So when you say terrorism, they may very well see persons seeing Barbados as a soft target to come and engage in behaviors fitting into the definition that you have. So come and tell us exactly what you mean. And let us, as you say, know that we have reminded Barbadians, and you have reminded me that we have legislation on the books, not only on the books in 2002, but amended in 2019. Come and tell us. But you see, again, you know why I wouldn't have remembered in 2019? Because never used to have proper debates.
Right. There you go.
No, they never used to have proper debates. So how many Barbadians will even remember that was on the order paper? You are sending me back now to do a little bit of homework and see who debated that, how many people spoke, and so on, but I digress. So I think that they owe the people an obligation. There's an obligation to come and tell us, why are you proposing this? How is it going to impact the fact that we had retaliation? Because I think that's how it was described by the Commissioner of Police in that word or similar word, that you had some gangs retaliating, and so you had all of these people being shot in this one event. So, don't just pelt around words that sound good, because those words conjure up certain meanings. And to repeat myself, not only in the minds of us here in Barbados, but people who are looking to Barbados and who may be influenced to stay away if they hear the notion of terrorism, finding its way into Barbados, domestic or otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, and I find that very interesting, Mr. BABB and Ms. McCLEAN and viewers, that we would want to be using that word terrorism, because remember, it was the Minister of Foreign Affairs who just said that has a terrorism that's far removed from Barbados. That was only a couple of weeks ago. When the travel warning was issued.
Couple days
ago, advisories, yes.
And the word terrorism was even mentioned. I don't know if Dave can actually find that. That
was the British one. That was the British advisory.
No, the British advisor. But what I'm making reference to, it's Kerry Simmons' response to it.
Right.
He said terrorism. He was appalled that they would use the word terrorism. So what? I mean, you wonder what is this? What is Prime Minister drinking? Why would you come now weeks later and mention in the word terrorism, which by definition, what has occurred is not terrorism? A classic domestic terrorism definition. And for something you already have laws on the books. You already have an anti-terrorism law. What is it that what is the intention here? And so it leads me to ask this question to the viewers and to the panelists. Can a domestic terrorism law be used to quiet dissenting voices? Because what I find what I'm finding with this government is that they are looking for every way to somehow reach the overreach into society, into civil society. And I'm wondering, I started to research that. And it is said that in Europe, anti-terror provisions criminalizing any glorification of terrorism have been criticized as being too broad and used against activists, bloggers, and artists for non-violent expression. Ambiguous language. If there's ambiguous language in this domestic terrorism legislation that she's trying to enact, we know a lot of these laws, Ms. McCLEAN, pieces of legislation have been ambiguous, badly written. Ambiguous language can lead to overreach.
But you have just
legitimate dissent or criticism. Go ahead, Ms. McCLEAN.
You have just hit the nail on the head. And the nail being that this piece of legislation, given all that you have said, going back to the definition of what is terrorism, does not speak to criminal violence. It speaks to what they were trying to do with other legislation that have had to be pulled back and revisited and challenged. Cybercrime bill, for example. So in other words, if terrorism speaks to issues targeting not John or Jane citizen, but targeting government or government positions or perspectives or policies or whatever. I mean, you talk about social, political, and whatever else. Then this is not the violence that we see. We've heard it for many years. A lot of it is related to drug trafficking and so on, turf wars, etc. That has nothing to do with a reaction to government. So in essence, we are talking about fighting crime with a piece of legislation without an explanation of what she wants to do on the part of the Prime Minister, but really and truly is probably coming around another entrance to attack a problem that people have highlighted and sought to call out the government on and to respond to what the government was putting. Now, but that is a whole new because it is making sense what you're saying. And therefore, it is even more important now for the Prime Minister to come to the public and say two things. One, what exactly are you proposing with this piece of legislation that you mentioned? Two, how does it differ? How does it modify, alter, enhance, replace, or whatever the existing legislation on the books on 2002, which you amended in 2019? And ultimately, taking all of that together with everything else, how are we addressing the very serious and debilitating crime situation in this country? Or are you parking that problem and you are going to now come and focus not on crime, but on shutting up the people who want to draw people's attention to the existence of crime, the consequences of crime, and other things that impact this country and the people of this country?
Yes. Mr. BABB, your thoughts on that? Am I stretching it, you think, or you think it's a possibility? Mr. BABB.
Yes, it is, because I think I've heard that phrase domestic terrorism before, but I'm trying to find out where I heard it and in what context. And I can tell you, I'm watching a film called Homeland, and if there's any suspicion of any person using language that is can be seen against the current government, they go for you and take you up your home to question you. So I'm saying what you suggested or what you're saying can be true, because if you're saying that dissenting voices can be seen as an act of terrorism against the government because you're speaking things that are not in favor of what the government is doing. So we're hoping to find, to hear what difference would it make to what has been amended in 2019 and what will be included. So, and we know this government, when it comes to writing legislation upon it, how good this government is. They're very good.
Yeah. You know, we got viewers, this is something that we need to watch out for. And, you know, we got to pay attention to what is happening with this, because we don't know if they're going to use this to try to come at us, you know, in a different way. We've seen it. And you can go and do your own research about it, that what has happened in Europe, to see how they have used that against the citizens, especially, as we said, if the language in the legislation is ambiguous. But Dave, do you have that? Do we have that with Kerry Simmons? Because I think it's important that we go back and look at what the Minister Kerry Simmons said in that response in the newspaper. Very important, because I don't know, Ms. McCLEAN, if you were Minister of Foreign Affairs at that time, when when CARICOM was pushing back against the U.S. when they wanted to put this war on terror in the Caribbean, and the CARICOM was actually pushing back on the word terror. So
Yes.
isn't it amazing, Mr. BABB, that the Prime Minister wants to use that word terror now when CARICOM was pushing back against it? But hold your thought there, Chris Cookie. Let's see what we see here. He says here, I don't see any basis for mentioning the issue of terrorism with respect to Barbados. Dave, can you put it up a little bit more? Thank you. Because it is obviously a non-existent threat and highly improbable, right? Now, I know there he was talking about international terrorism, right? Foreign, you know. But the point, though, is that he says that it is highly improbable. So you have the Commissioner of Police saying, oh, no, you don't need to fear. The Commissioner of Police is saying, Mr. BABB,
can we get the Commissioner's submission posted that people who may not have seen it will see what he was saying as it relates to? Yes, to see the difference.
We can do that. We can do
Yes.
that. Then can you highlight this so that people can see it? And then let's get the Commissioner of Police. He says, Kerry Simmons says here, I don't see any basis or even mentioning the issue of terrorism with respect to Barbados, because it's obviously a non-existent threat and highly improbable. Okay, so that's what Simmons has said, and then we're going to look to see what the Commissioner of Police is saying, and we then have to ask our Prime Minister, did you have discussion with even the Commissioner of Police? What, you know, did you guys, where did you come up? Did you just sit there and think of this? You know, so Dave, if we could find that would be great. That would be great. I'm trying to read some of the. Yeah, the police say Bridgetown shooting linked to a long-standing dispute. Madam Prime Minister, where is the domestic terrorism? What are you talking about? We're missing something here. Miss McCLEAN, I see you smiling. Go
no, as I read that headline and I recall what the Commissioner of Police said, the notion of terrorism is that an act of terrorism is intended to intimidate a people, a population, a government, or whatever the case may be. What you have is gang rivalry, and we have heard that exists in Barbados. We have heard and seen, you know, individuals supposedly associated with gangs being embraced and all of that. I'm not going into detail, but the notion of terrorism does not arise in the article capturing what the Commissioner of Police said. So I think, as you said, there are two things. One, it was either deliberately used because there is a plan to introduce it, not to address the problem that we had yesterday, that shooting, but in fact to address another issue which sticks in the government's craw, that is opposition from citizens who or criticism from citizens who are exercising their freedom of speech right to look at issues, analyze them, and share their opinions. I mean, some people may want to label them partisan, political, whatever, but it is people's right to speak to these things. And it is not intended to unfairly target or, a government governments or members of government or certain sectors of society. It is intended to have people understand objectively the challenges that we face, and in doing so, pointing out to government, you need to tackle these, or you are failing in this way or the next way. So it really, the government, the Prime Minister, because she's the person speaking, needs to come back and talk to the people properly.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Somebody is saying here, I would want to read what the Commissioner of Police said. And guys, this is important that we do this, because that's the purpose of the show. We're going to break it down. We're going to research. We're going to come to you, because sometimes you hear these words, people just say things. And it seems, oh, wow, she's doing something. But when you start to break it down, there's something not connecting here. Heather Cole says, I'm glad that the Commissioner spoke. What he said contradicts the PM's decision to have domestic terrorist legislation. He said the incident was not random. It was a long-standing dispute between two parties. The existing laws need to be informed in this case. There's no domestic terrorism in Barbados. What the PM needs to call is for anti-gang legislation. This is a threat, I think, to Barbados. This is who she should be going after, the gangs and the persons who are importing guns. There's nothing ideological here that warrants domestic terrorism law. There's no ISIS in BIM. She is, and she's correct. She's correct. And what, Heather, there we do have anti-terrorism laws on the books that already governs panic and fear, widespread fear, acts that create that. So, I don't know, but let's just read here, guys, a little bit. Police Commissioner Richard Boyce. You want to read, Mr. BABB? Can you see it?
It is too fine.
Too fine. Police
Yeah.
Commissioner Richard Boyce has described Saturday's shooting in Bridgetown as a targeted, revenge-driven. Waiting on Dave. Oops, can't say it anymore. It's okay. Let me wait until it settles down.
You can see it, Marcia?
What happened is a piece of it is dropping off.
Right.
So
Because if it makes it too big, yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah,
this
you
is
can see it from there now.
yes, it's the best way. Thank you. Bridgetown has a targeted, revenge-driven attack linked to a long-standing dispute, while insisting it does not erase years of successful crime fighting by the Barbados Police Service. 10 people were injured in the incident. Speaking at a press conference alongside Prime Minister Mia Mottley, Boyce said preliminary investigations indicated the incident was not random. What happened this morning, for us, we can say it was a revengeful act, Boyce said. Two parties against each other. It was a long-standing dispute. They waited on persons who were disembarking the vessel and took shots at them. Dave, go up a little bit more. The shooting occurred just after 3 a.m. as passengers were disembarking from a party cruise aboard the Dream Chaser 2 in Bridgetown. Boyce stressed that the incident, while serious, should not overshadow ongoing police successes. The records speak for themselves in terms of our successes over the period that I've been speaking to the country. He said a one-off incident this morning would not delete that excellent work which we have done over time. And it goes on, and he says to the people, don't panic, etc. So I don't understand if you're going to come up with if you're going to come up with domestic terrorism laws, right? I thought that you would have had some discussion with the Commissioner of Police, with the Attorney General, and everybody, Mr. BABB.
This is clearly two people at the same press conference on different sides of the coin, on different pages, and sometimes the Prime Minister says something. I see some person says you're trying to don't try to understand some of the things that come off of her mouth, but I am saying we have to, because some of those things which were uttered, they were put in place afterwards, although they took the wrong route to get it done. So we have to listen to what they're saying and try to understand and get ahead of what she says when it comes to a situation like this. But I suspect that this was a off-the-cuff response, and we wait and see where it goes in terms of legislation.
Yes. Let me just remind people, or just invite our viewers, that this is a good time that you can WhatsApp me at 236-7000, 236-7000. If you're outside of Barbados, remember to add the 246 to it, 246-236-7000. I know Dave will help me by putting up that number on the screen. We also have our Dr. Ferdinand from Colombia, and he's been commenting in the chat. And let me just read some of his comments. He said, we seem to forget that Simmons has aspiration of becoming prime minister. Dr. Ferdinand.
Of course, that is what he's correct, because what we saw on what we witnessed and heard on the call-in program the other morning showed is a clear disconnect between Simmons and the cabinet and discussion.
Yeah. He also said, Dr. Ferdinand says, I'm sure if external forces are involved, a lot of gang members, when caught, are going to expose everything and everybody. Does she really want that? And he says, I have my doubts, which we're going to jump into that a little bit more. And he says that she talked about external assistance. Is she prepared for the exposure that could result for her government, especially if the FBI or Interpol are involved? And I'm going to just speak government, okay?
But Marcia, why would she say that she go for FBI and when they know who the people are? They're known, but you call them and give them millions of dollars. They then went and took up a front page story saying that the money wasn't enough or it ran out. You understand?
Yeah.
So how you gonna go to FBI to find people that you know who they are that warrant?
Listen, the commissioner of police is the person to whom we should listen on these matters. The commissioner of police explained to Barbadians that, you know, so I'm saying he explained. Why is she now coming with this? But, you know, it's
yeah. You know, I as people are getting ready to call in, and we are ready for you. I just want to say that, you know, every week from where I sit, I hear all kinds of things relating to this government. I'm not calling anybody's name. This government and crime. This government seems to be so closely connected to what is happening in this country as it relates to crime. There are people, and I know names, but I can't call any names, so I'm just going to speak generally and say that there are people that are we would look up to as leaders in government, whose names are bandied about. People on the blocks are calling your names. There are pictures that are being sent around with
right, of course, they get for the ops with them too.
Go ahead, Mr. Bob. You say your piece.
They not only the name being bandied about, but they get the opportunity. When they get the opportunity to have for the ops.
That's right.
And so what is the message that you're sending to those that are involved in crime? What is the message that you are sending? Because you're taking photos. We see these people. We know who they are. We know who they are. We know the position. We know that they're gang leaders. We know them. You know how we know them? You introduced us to them. Because for me, I didn't know the gang leader until the government introduced me to gang leaders. Yeah. We see them with gang leaders.
They're very important. They're very important people too, because they get
I saw a recent photograph. The Prime Minister has been joined by one of our colleagues, the gentleman who is responsible, who took over from former Minister Corey Lane. I don't know if that's part of his initiative, because people were saying that they weren't hearing anything from Mr. Humphrey, but they say a picture paints 1,000 words. I don't know if you saw that picture, Marcia, recently.
Yeah, I saw the picture. I mean, the young man, the man in there will have to say who he is. The man he was with. But, you know, the point is that a lot of these people are, you know, as Mr. Thing was saying, these photo ops, and it's sending a message that, and so we are, Ms. McCLEAN, the point is that we're confused. We are confused. What exactly is the strategy? If there are people in government that we see, and it appears to us that people of questionable character, right, they're taking pictures with them, then, you know, it is being said, you know, that there are people in government who shot people in government that have illegal firearms. All of these things.
All of these allegations. I mean, a picture, let's say, for example, government said that they entered into a dialogue with the criminal element. Now, if I see a picture where people are sitting around a table, having a dialogue, a discussion about how do we resolve this, how do we bring some order. But when I see people with drinks in their hand that don't look like juicy, right? and you know, drinks in their hand, and they're giving all of these signs and so on, merriment, they're fraternizing, they're socializing. And I don't know that is to be seen as an effective strategy. What it does, it gives people a certain measure of
entitlement,
legitimacy, entitlement, and all of these things, you know. And as Rosin said, it was embarrassing. Well, I use the word she uses, embarrassing, to see certain things, because this is a small society. We can recall the you know, the story of people supposedly calling the prime minister and having police officers to step back because the person demonstrated that, you know, I could speed dial people in authority. I mean, what is that saying? You know, and so that is what we need to address, not domestic terrorism. Because I just want to make this point quickly, because how do you define domestic terrorism? Is it different from the definition in the anti-terrorism legislation? And that anti-terrorism legislation in 2002, because as we were talking, to refresh my mind, was passed as part of an obligation coming out of the 9/11 events, where you had that attack in New York, and at the United Nations level and so on, the world came together to say, look, we need to perhaps address terrorism in its many aspects, and so you put legislation in place. So what is the difference in definition? Is the Prime Minister saying that in the case of Barbados, we're going to create a special definition of terrorism for this domestic situation? Come on.
Yeah. I think citizens, we need to have our eyes wide open. It seems to me, just looking at what the commissioner said, and as Rose Corbin, now that the holiday is over, we have to give you a call, and we miss you on the show, please. We need you on the show. So you're going to get a call from me, and we're going to see what we can do technically to make sure that you can be on the show. But there is something up. Something is up, guys. With what is happening when you have listen, you know, Miss McCLEAN, I was trying to talk to a young man and saying to him, you know, well, you started working now. Can you try to cut down on the smoking of the weed, right? He said, you know, I don't know if I can do that. He said, you know, smoking it is what keeps me sane. You know, I said, but look, you're wasting all your money. You're spending this amount of money. You cut down. He said, but you want me to stop smoking weed? And he could name off a big official in here that smoke weed.
You know, but Marcia, you touched on something, because yes, today I was finally able to get to the sea. And on my way home, I saw a group of boys, not young men, boys. They couldn't be more than 16. And I think I've been around long enough to be able to recognize when somebody is high on marijuana. And so many of these youngsters look wasted. This is before 10 o'clock in the morning, right? And I'm asking myself, if at that stage, because I presume they're still in school, if at this stage they are so into this, how is it going to impact? Because you mentioned the money the young man spends, but how does it impact his performance on the job where he's working? How does it influence the attitude to even want to go and find a job? You know, this is concerning to me that everywhere you turn, and perhaps ALWYN can see this as somebody who engages with school children, both, and I must tell you, both males and females. It is concerning to me.
You know, and you know, before Mr. BABB jumps in there, Mr. BABB, I am here thinking, you know, that it is so important when you are looking at this government and looking at how, you know, some of these leaders were presented to us. And we a lot of people like myself felt like these were going to be, you know, the best that Barbados could ever produce, and the best that, and to see some of the behavior of these people. I mean, this government has had people, you know, in all kinds of charges and all kinds of, you know, and then when you look at candidates, Mr. BABB, candidates in the choice of candidates, Mr. BABB, I think it starts there, because from your candidates, it's how you're going to form your government. So if you bring in shady characters as candidates, right? And this is to all political parties out there. Obviously, when you begin to put the government together, you're going to have some of everybody. Mr. Bob, any thoughts there?
It makes me, sometimes it makes me wonder why we see youth going astray, and we say it's the music. We say that they're following the movie stars, the artists, the singers, and those successful people. But here we have a situation where they're now following those persons who we have elected to look after the affairs of our country, because they're somehow seen involved and getting involved with some shady persons as well. And then when the selection of persons to run in constituencies, and no, but let me just say that they're not saints. Maybe they're not saints. They're all sinners. But I'm saying, if all fairness to the young people, and if you're going to point to one sector, if you're going to point to music, if you're going to point to artists, the leaders have to look within themselves as well, because they are the leaders. The artists are entertainers. They have the influence, but the leaders are those persons who strike the balance between what we see artists doing as part of their daily trade and performance as to what leaders of a country is supposed to do and to show what we want to see from them. So our leaders have to, and those persons who are seeking elective office need to present a particular, know that we are so concerned about where our young men and young women are heading. They need to present a certain lifestyle, or let me say, not even lifestyle, but a certain kind of character that will give that balance between what we're getting on our televisions or on the internet to what we see on the day-to-day business in the news.
Yes. And guys, I'm thinking here about I spoke with somebody. I'm thinking about how to present it, okay? Without calling names or giving away any sources. And what was sent to me was that some of the people that were involved in what happened there, yes, it was yesterday, that there's so many persons, Ms. McCLEAN, who could say to me, this particular person is the main person in Barbados that brings in weapons. Okay? Somebody from different sources could say to me, but Mrs. Weeks, this particular person here, right? I'm hearing from different sources. And I believe that the police must have seen what I saw or heard what I heard. So I don't understand why we are looking. Up until now, we have not been able to crack the source of these weapons coming in. I heard a voice note today that said, but every man on that cruise gonna have a piece of steel on him. Right? Everybody gonna have a piece of steel. And that's how they talk in Jamaica. I know that that's a gun. Right? Everybody gonna have a piece of steel on them. This person should have known to bring out his soldiers. Young people are talking, and they're saying that this person is called a particular name because this person carried the fire. They have the fire weapons. And you're going to tell me that we cannot crack down on the source of these guns when some of the same people that they are saying that are they're the source that they bring in and sell, they deal in these, are connected to people in government. You're God's son. People in government, your own God's son. Bringing in weapons from Canada. And you cannot stop that, but you're all coming to sit down and confusing people every time with all these whole lot of things that you're doing that does not deal with Mr. Bob and Miss McCLEAN. Oh God, I get excited about it. Do you realize that every time they come with ideas concerning crime, it does not deal with the issue? Do you all realize that?
You are correct.
Yes. Go ahead, Maxine.
No, I was saying you are correct. We keep And let me say correct also in relation to, because I was searching as you were talking for a WhatsApp message. People are calling names. People are talking about sources of weapons and whatever the case may be. We are seeing and hearing voices, and they're not because if you have to knit something in the bud, you have to get to the source. This is a small place. You know, and I believe, I'm not a lawyer, but the lawyers could advise me. If the police service has reason to believe that McCLEAN is hoarding weapons, let me say, or renting guns.
Mm-hmm.
And I've said it before, if Marcia were charged with shooting John Brown, you can extract all kinds. If you don't extract who supplied her with the rented gun, you know, you can get all kinds of other information, because we've seen the speed with which the police service is able to solve certain crimes where multiple persons are involved, multiple young men, for example, being charged for a murder or whatever the case may be, which suggests to me that they were able to extract information. But you can tell me you can't extract information on other things, on the other part of that crime as to who supplied this. You know, this is a small society. And as you say, we are told. I mean, I was shocked when I listened to a voice note today, and my response was, this young man isn't afraid that somebody takes him out, because he's calling all kinds of names, referring to types of weapons and so on. And
how much respect he lost with one person,
one individual, because this person should have moved with his soldiers. I think that's what it was.
Yes.
You know, and that's brazen.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I mean, very, very brazen. You know, and you know, I tell you, this thing is it's baffling me. It's baffling me why, and I want Barbados to understand that. You know, because some of you laugh and you say, "Oh, 30 love again in your skin." In whose skin? In whose skin? When you have a government, when every time anything with crime, they dance around it, don't you see? Is it because the government is so closely attached or connected? I'm asking a question. To criminal activities in this country, why they are dancing around it? Because we clearly showed you tonight from the statements of the Prime Minister, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Commissioner of Police, something not connecting there. It clearly shows us that they're not serious. Now, one of the things do you remember, guys, that there was a big report that cars were being some stolen
cars or something were brought into Barbados, imported into Barbados, something like that.
And it is, when you talk to people, they say that Marcia, the guns are coming in through car parts. Okay, they're breaking them. They're hiding them in engine blocks, vehicle doors, in transmission, in bumpers, dashboards, spare parts containers. Right? This is listen.
Marcia, let me say something about that container business, because I worked around the port, and I was around the port, not involved in cargo, but because of proximity, I was involved in the cruise industry for more than a decade. The whole system of containers.
Repeat. I'm sorry, we made over there. Repeat what you said. We missed something.
The whole system of clearing containers is something that needs to be looked at. All of a sudden, we have had a proliferation of spare part businesses and so on. Now, I'm not saying they're not legitimate. I don't know legitimate from otherwise. But if what you're saying is those allegations are in the public domain, and if that is the case, my question is, why is it that the customs officials in Barbados do not, on a consistent basis, do some comprehensive checks of certain shipments, right? Because if you're saying to me, this is what is being alleged, make sure that you do it. But we have a situation now where I suspect that perhaps as much as 80% of containers exit the port, through some new Asakuda system or whatever the case may be. And I challenge the officials within the customs system and the minister responsible or ministers responsible to go and examine these things in greater detail. And let us also see who are the importers of these things. Because as you said, we dancing around crime, but we are refusing to, because I wouldn't say we're unable to, I'm saying we're refusing to tackle what is rumored. I mean, it's almost shouted from the rooftops now, not only rumored and whispered. It is almost shouted from the rooftops where these things are coming, to whom they're consigned, and so on. So go and tell me and Marcia and the whole of Barbados and ALWYN and everybody else, categorically, we have been looking at these things consistently. We have done the kind of checks that would help us to say they have not exited the port without, do the traditional kinds of checks. Because, and don't tell me that our borders are porous, because I don't think a lot of them wash up on the shores of Barbados. We have heard things coming through the port, but you know what? It seems as though some people in Barbados get away with all kinds of things. And so we're focusing on, as you say, on the small players, the ones who are the I would call, for want of a better words, the drones, the ones who down there taking all, dealing with these micro things and so on. But the fellas who dealing with with volume and whatever, it just, and they're laughing at us.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I think we need to reach a point that we get serious, Mr. Bob, because because there's a certain religious group. Okay, we're going to hear a pin drop now. There's a certain religious group that somehow they're untouchable. Listen, they will throw all doo-doo on Christians in here. They will take up filth and throw on Christians. But there's a certain group, a certain religious group inside of here. A certain ethnic group inside of here. And you know who you are. You are the ones bringing in the cars. And I'm telling you, we're going to stay on top of you. Because if we're going to protect our black children inside of here, we're going to have to start saying some things. Okay? Because I'm telling you, if pastors were the one bringing in the guns in engine blocks, in vehicle doors, in car transmissions, in bumpers and dashboards, you wouldn't hear about it. All of you would be talking online about it.
Yes.
The pastors, the church people, but there is a religious group inside of here, hiding behind religion, covering the faces, and wearing enough clothes. Then that same sex, and you don't know what they have on them. You don't know. They're setting up businesses all over, and not one of them get shot in here. You don't see none of them get shot. You see any of the 10 that got shot is them?
Not one.
Not one. Who they're buying the guns from? Who bringing them in? Who is bringing in the containers? It's time, Barbadians, to get up. It's time we take back this country and let's talk straight. They come inside of here. Some of them not even born here. Don't get me upset now. And we're dancing around them because they have bag loads of money to give politicians. So that you are and giving press conference and behave like you all don't know the source of them inside of here. You know where they live and you know what they do. 20%, what 20% that is barrels, and you don't check all barrels because you are letting this group and this religious group to come in. But I tell you, we're going to listen. We're going to have to deal with this, and some of this will have to deal in the spirit. Because I'm telling you, you all refuse to do it because that's where you get your back of campaign money. I saw at the same cruise the guys on the stage and they're just throwing $100. That's what we're going to throw around here when it come out election time. So you don't want to touch the band leaders. You don't want to do it because that's how you go. How some of you plan to win elections. But I tell you something, God is not sleeping. And your deeds will come to light. You are kidnapping boys in this country. Go ahead, Miss McCLEAN. I'm getting
Marcia, we have to say over and over again to our Barbadian people, young, old, and in between. You need to appreciate the value of your vote and the value of you as a human being. And when you are willing to sell your vote, to exchange your vote for a couple $100, you are really saying to those people, I am worthless. I can be disrespected. I can be treated anyhow. And I think that it is something that our political parties need to say to those who have access to all of these resources. I do not want your blood money. That's what I call it. I do not want your blood money, because when you take money from characters who are not generating those monies legitimately, etc., or generating them from renting guns to kill your children, to put in the hands of a 16-year-old to kill somebody his age or a little more, to abuse young women. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you saying about yourself? I ain't get to the politicians yet. And I would say to any people talk about 30 love. Well, let me tell you, if I were running in a seat, it would have to be a love if it meant that I had to go and take people money to disrespect Barbadians by saying to them, take this and vote for me. It is a scourge that we have to get rid of, because those same people will meet you, Marcia, 2 weeks after the election and say, Miss Weeks, I want some help. My child can't go to school. You know, we have to get our people to have a level of dignity about them, a level of integrity, a level of decency, a level of self-respect. And those are the things that will make a difference. You see, we talk about crime and so on, but what are we doing? We on the one hand, we are talking about all this whatever legislation, but we are turning a blind eye to our 13 and 14-year-olds almost being constantly high. Because somebody's making money. People are making money off of that.
Yeah.
You know, we are turning and we are perpetuating a set of behaviors by having all of these fests. You have a year-long celebration called We Gathering. Show me 5 serious initiatives.
Year long. Well, I understand that they had their regathering into the new year.
Well, yes, they've gone past. And so but what was the hallmark of the gathering? We walking up.
Food and fed.
You know. And how was that uplifted? Because you know it is mind-boggling, and for me, Marcia, you, as you said, you got emotion. It is disturbing. It is disturbing because we see, and then you know what? We numb the minds and brains of our youngsters, and then say they don't want to work, so we have to import labor. We get a set of young people who will work for enough money to buy a supply of weed, and they don't work for the day, you know. it is serious. And I you see, we've talked about the Prime Minister, but let me talk about the other 29 people she will have as candidates in an election, and it applies to all, as you said, all aspiring politicians. How are you going to change this mindset, this mentality of mendicancy that has been put in place in this country? That in this country, that it pervades. And then you will see people doing things, and they will tell you, in the day they tell, well, I am ever so pious and religious and whatever. And then they are willing to compromise themselves and damage the souls of our young people but some of the old ones too.
Yes.
It bothers me. And then you see the consequences across this country. Poor work ethic, poor productivity, just poor standards of how we conduct ourselves in public and in private and anywhere else. And then we say we can't find people who want work. We can't find this, we can't find that, because we are destroying them before we develop them.
Mr. BABB, I know I had asked you a question and then I got carried away. I think but because you see, I keep saying it on the show, Mr. BABB, I grew up in this kind of environment. And the way to deal with this, you've got to deal with it. You can't dance around it.
No.
Sir, we're going to lose too many of our young people. But I was supposed to include you. I think I was asking.
You know me, but I'm saying that you hear the commissioner talk about crime fighting, but it disturbs me when and solving crime. But it disturbs me when the highlight of solving crime is catching or locking up 16-year-olds, 15-year-old young men, or young people under the age of 25. That is not successful crime fighting. That is disturbing, because when you see gun violence, a 16-year-old can't purchase a gun. So therefore, your crime fighting, your success in crime fighting should go to the suppliers. That is when when I will applaud the success of crime fighting in Barbados. It cannot be that our young people are being sacrificed, because that is what is happening. Because when there's a demand, we have the suppliers, and they are making the situation worse. So therefore, the police service is fighting a losing battle, because for you to stop gun violence and to cut down on it, you have to go to the source. That is crime fighting. You have to go to the source to prevent the escalating gun violence in Barbados. Not catch the little giddy-head fellas who are given a certain amount of money to take out a fellow that they don't even know. They only know where they are, where the person they hired for at that particular point in time. They jump up a car, they do the act, and they move on. That is not crime fighting. So it's very disturbing to at the stage of where we are, and they know who the people are.
It is, because last year alone, I got caught up with family and so on, and I was trying to keep count, but I had stopped counting. I think, did we get to 50 murders for the year? Anybody knows? Did we get what?
I think it said stop at 49 or 47.
There's a question. I listened to somebody who was listing the deaths, and so there seems to have been a miscounting or a skipping out of something. So it may very well be, because somebody actually systematically was naming this person was murdered on this date and whatever, and it seems as though somebody didn't quite count every last one.
It seems like it's 50. When I was checking it, it seemed at that time, that's why I asked the question. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to, Judith, I will give you a call tomorrow, ma'am, and we're going to go through this together and come up, because we want to tell the truth on the show. All right. of what of exactly you know what it is. Somebody said the media stop counting. Well, we can't stop counting because those are our black children. Those are our black children. You understand what I tell you? And that just annoys me, Miss McCLEAN, because we can't do better. We can't do better as a country.
Yes.
When you are, I want to ask the government a question. They're getting me, and the show done, soon done, Mr. Thing, but it's getting me so annoyed. Because we've been this road already, Miss McCLEAN, and we have not gotten any proper answer.
True.
I want to ask the ministers in this country, do you tell custom officers when particular packages and coming through not to open certain packages? Ministers of government, do you do that? Do you do that? This is where we need to get at, Mr. BABB. We got to hold them accountable. How many of you have gotten rich off of crime? How many of you are involved in bringing in smuggling guns into this country? How many of you in government are walking around big nice suits or nice clothes and nice shoes and big cars through criminal activities? And then to come around to us and you all want to go back into government? And we must put you back there. We are that stupid. We don't love ourselves. Well, there's a press conference tomorrow, and you know, and this was sent in a public briefing. And I'm not sure what the topic is, so this was sent to me, and I put it up. We're closing, and you know, oh my God, this is becoming so clear to me as I'm sitting here, Miss McCLEAN, exactly what is going on. These people, this government, they can do whatever they want to do with me because it's so clear to me. It is so clear to me they are avoiding something or someone. Are you under the control of organized crime? Is it that you're afraid? You're really telling me they do not want to touch the real issue, Mr. BABB? This is giving fear. This is giving what really going on though, Mr. BABB?
Yes, say that again. I missed you just now.
I'm saying it seems to me that it is so clear. It is so clear that they are going around this thing.
Yes, because when you listen to the Prime Minister as he addressed every occasion, it is easier to point the fingers to those young boys and young men and women who are committing the crime. It is easy to label them domestic terrorists. She's not addressing, when she use that phrase, she's not addressing the persons who are supplying the weapons. That's a business deal for them, because at the end of the day, they benefit, whether they are involved or not. Once you get your hands on the funding for your campaign and to dish out money at election time, you are just as guilty, because on the backs of that money being sold and that demand being met by that supply, you're giving opportunity for having our young people cut down in the youth, and they must be held accountable as well.
Oh, Miss McCLEAN, somebody here said that we need one day in the park to pray and fast to Barbados. I'm for that. But you
can do that, but we also have to add to that. We have to consistently find a way of telling Barbadians, talking to Barbadians, trying to convince them what has driven us to pray and fast. That we have reached the stage where individuals are willing to sell their souls, but in a transaction, you need two parties. So you have people who are willing to pay for them, who are willing to ignore the fact that they may have children themselves, you know. And so when they look at their children, they should look at the kind and ask themselves, would I want my child to be so damaged by all these goings on, by the things that I am doing? And to recognize your child is not exempt. You know, they may not succumb, but they will be affected by the consequences of those actions. So we can do that, but we have to find a way to reach the minds of our people, because it ain't only young people who take money. I mean, you hear of the behaviors of young people, but they're not the only ones
that take money.
Some will tell you, I ain't going to the polls unless I get money.
You're correct.
Make sure I bring my money. Why? I would have to lose that seat or win a Marcia. And I think we have to tell Barbadians that and look and see how you are going to find yourself suffering when you make those kind of very sad decisions. This is what Barbados is coming to. Transactions. And when you take 365 days in a year, a normal term is 5 years, and you taking $300, you're not even getting $1 a day in the first year.
It's true.
Work it out in cents and see how much cents you sell your vote for in your soul.
It's disrespect, though. It's disrespect.
And when the people get up and say, well, you know, I really can't do nothing for you, I ain't interested in doing it, or they may not even answer you. That's what you bought. That's what you sold. You sold your right to have these people do the right thing, to choose people who. I mean, I walk around this country and one is almost in despair because you are seeing the decay. It is causing a decay in this country to the point where we talked about legislation. Tell me how, I mean, and this is an assignment I would say to some of the young people at university. Go and look at the records of Parliament and identify minister by minister, MP by MP, and look at his or her contribution in the House of Assembly or the Senate. First of all, the frequency of contribution, and then the quality of contribution. Do they care enough to even help you to understand why they're doing the things they're doing? You know, and then they have the audacity to come and talk about a whole set of things, putting labels and mislabels.
Yes.
But when you look to see what have we achieved, how has the quality of life improved? How have the behaviors of our young people improved? Just take a walk around Barbados at the end of school, and you listen to 10-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, boys and girls, teenagers, not communicating properly. They know every expletive in the book. You know, this is what I remember. I mean, I am not asking anybody to go back to the 60s and 70s when I was at school. But walking and chewing gum, a teacher will look at it and say, you're disrespecting your uniform. I mean, they don't even wear the uniform properly now. You know, we have to pull this back. We have to pull this back.
Somebody said this sounds just like what is happening in Guyana. The young people sell them soul for little or nothing. And, you know, and it's a black children or black children. And that is just, as a mother, that is hurting my heart, and to see that we have people in government who are hiding up these other people. And I want to ask the police a question tonight. Commissioner of Police, and you know, I respect you all. I really do. But I have to ask the question, are you also afraid of this ethnic group and this religious group? I have to ask.
And it is not only the allegations of business practices. I mean, walk around this country and see things that are happening. people are breaking rules, whether it is zoning rules where you should and should not do business, you know, and nobody is you write to the agencies, health inspectors. You know, you see people doing things and you want their proper planning permission.
It's given, yes.
You know, and my people who make it the majority are comfortable to do whatever they're doing. And they will come to penalize you. They will come to penalize you to prevent you from doing what you're doing. But people are given carte blanche to do as they like.
Yes.
And then I'm supposed to look young Black children in the I say it over and over, there are 4 generations of my family alive. And in another 5-10 years, there will probably, if I am wrong, there will be 5 generations of us. And I look at those young people. And then they become cynical because they say, but we can't do this. We're not getting these opportunities. How come I try this and somebody who is inferior to me in terms of what they're proposing to do, getting a clear passage?
It's unfair. It's very unfair. And we have to continue this, guys. It's 10 o'clock. And I don't know. It just had me so worked up because I'm realizing, Mr. BABB, it's like a realization that's just kind of hit me that these people have no intention of dealing with this problem.
No.
I could be wrong. If I'm wrong, God forgive me. But it does not seem to me, Miss Corbin, Rosalind Corbin, you are so right. When I sat down today and I looked at the definition of domestic terrorism, I said, what is going on in this person's head? Then it seems to me that this government does not have any intention of dealing with this crime. If I'm wrong, somebody please prove it to me, because it doesn't seem that way to me. It is a waste of time. Mr. BABB, the final word, and then we go to Ms. McCLEAN, and we're done.
I believe, and I would say to those persons who are watching, that we have an opportunity sometime this year to say to this government, we are fed up and disgusted. We are not pleased that so many of our young men and women were cut down in the youth. And you are playing with crime fighting in Barbados. We have to say to them through the ballot that our young people's lives matter to us. Yes, we have concerns with cost of living, but there's no other issue bigger than the lost lives of our young people. And this government, for the last 7 years, going 8, has played with this matter of crime, and it has come to a head, and we are going to go to the polls and we're going to do something about it, because they have no intention, based on who they were operating for the last 7 years, of really fighting or assisting the police in fighting the crime.
Yes, Mr. BABB. Thank you. Ms. McCLEAN.
You know, Marcia, at the beginning of the show, and I want to thank you for how you opened the show tonight. And you were talking about the valley and whatever. And I will share this with you. As you were talking, I said, you know what 2026 will be? The Pamela Project. MAXINE. Pamela is my second name. And that was about me taking on, parking a lot of things and focusing on. But you know what you said at the end of the show has turned that upside down. It would still be the Pamela Project, but it has to be about the people, the children of Barbados. I cannot see myself ignoring all that we are seeing. And I will say this now, this is not about, well, I don't like to use negative. This is about committing to doing something and finding more persons like yourselves to impact on the quality of life of our children, because nobody else is doing it. Other people take care of their own. They may damage ours, but they don't damage their own.
No.
And therefore, we have to commit to finding ways to turning around what is happening to our children.
Yes.
Every time I hear, I've lost count of the numbers of young people, young men, but there may be one or two women sprinkled in their females, the young men on remand for murder. You know, and you look at children, as I mentioned, on the road, we have to find a way to impress on these children through their parents, to them directly, what you are doing is a fast track to self-destruction.
Yes. Short lives.
To self-destruction. I mean, I look at the performance of a number of young Africans, because as anybody would know, the population of Africa is primarily people under 35. And you see those young people seeking to make a difference, to make the world, you know, take advantage of what is there. And we have young people who couldn't care less because they are watching or they're being intoxicated by a leadership, a government leadership who does not give a damn. That's the only way I could call it. You can dress it up how you like.
But that is it. Yes.
You can dress it up how you like. They do not care. Because how can you sit and then you want to tell me, Marcia, if I gotta stop telling me, you want to tell me that we should have so many women in parliament and whatever, that the DLP don't like women because they don't have all these candidates or what, how many women candidates, but you have a bunch of women. Somebody wrote a note there about you. They could see that you're a mother and that you care. There's a certain thing about, and management is my thing, theories of women in leadership, but I'm not going to get into that. But you are saying to me, you want all of these things, but by your actions and lack of action, you are throwing our children to the wolves or to the dogs, because we don't have wolves in Barbados.
Yeah.
So Marcia, my commitment is to step back from my selfish project that I was saying that it's time that I am reaching a cycle in my life. If in the next few months, if I see it, I would have reached that target that we read about in the Bible, but I can't be selfish. Not when I'm seeing and hearing. When I listen to you, it reminds me of why you do what you do and why you are able to get persons like ALWYN to come and sit down and share, because he is somebody by his very actions for many years that he cares about young people.
Well, Ms. McCLEAN, I tell you something. I could sit and listen to you because you're talking and I was I'm over here writing notes. And I say, you know, I go, you know me, I go by inspiration. And as I was getting dressed today to come on, this thought, when I always say it goes like passes my ear like this, and telling me about the children and the crying again. And I'm saying, oh, I'm trying to ignore it, because when it gets me, the last time it got me, I had to sit on the floor. That's the whole charlatan thing. And, you know, and I'm saying, what is this now? I'm trying to ignore it, Mr. BABB. I'm talking to you. My whole skin is this thing, because I'm seeing this. It's like a war. We've got to get into war for our children, for this generation. We need to end the show, Ms. McCLEAN, and thing. But this government has destroyed.
Yes.
The government, I'm going to say, that's why they say I don't like people. I don't have a problem with the Prime Minister, you know. I pray for the Prime Minister every morning. And I don't necessarily need to come on here to say that. But some of you don't understand. There is a demonic spirit operating over the woman, over this government. And if you be honest, look at how they're sending our children to school like vagabonds. You would think that anything good going to come out of our education system? Be honest. The children look like vagabonds.
And it leads to indiscipline. You see?
Everybody do like this. You pass them. They're rubbing out their hand middle. Before sure that was happening in Barbados under this administration. It's time we stop talking nonsense, man, and call it what it is. They have destroyed our whole setup with me in this country, and it's sad. And we sit back and give them facts and walk up and frolicking and drugs. When they campaign, they give them drugs to vote for them. Money and drugs. Come and tell me that is like. I am sick of it. And we need to go to war for these things.
Yes.
And I don't care who it is, whoever, all them candidates. Every single one of you, I counted how many opposition parties or whatever, how many they got. No, don't give them one time a day. Those that are mixed up in that kind of lifestyle. We don't want you anymore. You're sick. I didn't come on here to talk like this tonight, but I'm seeing it as I'm sitting here, Miss McCLEAN. I'm seeing Miss McCLEAN. You see those kids going to school? I mean,
I saw it, as I said, I was driving from the beach yesterday morning, and I saw this group, and it's not the first time. You go in the water and all you're doing is smelling marijuana, and you're asking yourself, is that all our children can do? And it is not a 40-year-old man or woman. These are 14 and 13 years old,
yes,
where their brains are still developing. There's research to show the damage that is done. I can say categorically, I have reached the age I have reached, and marijuana has never crossed my lips. And that was by choice. I'm not telling people don't do what you want to do. But when our children get caught up with that, because like a cigarette, it is addictive, I am sure. When our children get hooked on that, and then they get caught up in all kinds of things. And then we say that, we can't find workers, they're not focused, they're not productive, they're not interested. Because you know what? They're living in some plan, they're just mellow. You know?
And to fix it, we're bringing, and it's easy fix for them. And to bring people from overseas.
If they are comfortable seeing our children like that, I want to see people. I mean, as I said, you choose what you want to do. But I think at a 12 and 10 and 9 and whatever, that isn't about choices. That is about being oriented into something. And by the time you catch yourself, you're addicted. My father was a chain smoker, according to him, for 60 years. But you know what? Except for one of his children, out of 10 of them, none of us didn't smoke. Because we saw the nuisance that it was. But you know what? If we started, because we saw him smoking cigarettes, we might have become addicted to cigarette smoking too. But give our children a chance.
Yes.
To develop. I look at it and I'm just watching these guys, and
some of these adults, I'm sick of you all too. Sick of you, because when people now get in the trenches and start to work, you come and mixing up apples and oranges and that. Oh, people can learn with their hair twist up. We're dealing with a problem. Don't tell me nonsense. Some of you same adults.
But Marcia, this whole, because, and this is something Rose would be interested in this as an educator. A uniform serves a purpose. You understand? There's a discipline that comes with that. I remember as a schoolgirl, we couldn't wear earrings in school. You know what? But when you went home in summer vacation and you go home on Sundays and Saturdays, you wore your earrings. If you got your ears pierced, yes, you can wear them, a small one till your ear is properly healed or whatever. It didn't kill you not to have it in your ears. But so in essence, when we talk about hairstyles and so on, a person who is Rastafari by religion and so on, that's a different thing. But letting boys come to school with their hair all kinds of hoes and girls, it, you know, it's where people then start focusing on outdoing each other with styles and whatever. And you know what? As much as that is the case, look and see whose children adhere to
Yes,
what is considered the tradition.
it's true. You're
Look
correct.
and see whose children adhere to the tradition. But you see, they don't care. Y'all are
And
just
they take them out, and the same people take their children out of public school. You hear what I tell you?
but that is true too.
They don't expose them to it.
But we could
I
go
want
on.
our people, I want our people to just open their eyes.
Think,
Yes.
think. Ask yourselves, are you happy? Are you comfortable? Do you feel good about yourself and what you see and what is happening to your children and your children's children and your neighbors' children? And look at them and look at the children of the others who, when they become adults and they are focused on business and furthering their education and accomplishing whatever it is they desire, ask yourself what was, is, and will be the difference between those children and our children.
That is it.
No, but that's, you know, because I don't care what people, freedom is fine, but there's a time for freedom. Rules serve a purpose.
McCLEAN, we want to do the show, and I want to talk to some of you there in this, some of you adults, some of you, I'm telling you, you're part of the problem. You are, some of you, you're not about trying to fix nothing. Okay, we're going to blame the parents. But tell me something, if there are rules in the school, and the leaders set the school, the Ministry of Education set the rules, a parent can send a child and break the rules?
No.
Come on, guys. Let's not mix it all up. Let's not mix it up. You've got it to start, it rises and falls, and leadership. Stop mixing it up. We're either going to deal with this thing or we're not going to. But every time people blame the parents, but listen, who run the school? The parents? Stop it. The leadership is bad. You understand what I'm saying, Mr. BABB? It's getting just annoying now. We're either going to be serious about our children. We have to go to war for our children.
That is it. That is what this thing is about. Do it for our children.
You know, I have to done. I'm always going to end the show and I can't turn off the mic, but we are going to continue tomorrow on this. I'm going to spend some time, folks. Those of you who can pray, let's end with this thought. I don't know if your eyes were open up like mine tonight. And I said my eyes. You understand, Miss McCLEAN? It's like this thing just, I saw it for what it was and what it is. Those of you who can pray, let's go to war. Let's go to war over this thing here. And stop saying your prayers. We're dealing with principalities and powers. We're dealing with leadership. That's what you're dealing with. Before 2018, our boys were not walking, digging out their hand miggles and all of that. It wasn't like this. Something wrong at their head. Let's go to war for our children. We must see change. If you put your mind...
is muted. Take the time to talk to these children on a one-on-one in your neighborhood. You may not have any children. You may have all grown adults. You may have grandchildren who are also young adults. But take your time to talk to children, whether it's children in your neighborhood, at the bus stop. And I'm not talking about quarreling with them and exposing them to things. Find out. I was talking to a little boy came to my house with his grandmother recently. And something about him, I just started to talk to him, Marcia and ALWYN. It was such a pleasure to talk. He's about 9 or 10, to talk to him, because I realized how much he knows. And, you know, one of the things was about reading. And, you know, the first thing, I don't like to read. I said, but you have your telephone in. What do you do? And I showed him how to use this to read about the things that he likes. And I was amazed when he started to talk to me. I said, but you'd read, because you're reading to explain those things you had to be reading, you know?
Yes.
And in talking to him, I realized we then started to talk about what is it that you want to do, what you want to be, and what you have to do in order to be able to do that or the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked myself, how many children have conversations
Mm-hmm.
on things that matter? Not big and, you know, some things that matter to them,
Yeah.
that help them to have a view of what is valuable in life, what is important, simple but important things, you know.
Yeah, you know, we're going to have to continue this. And Donnie, I would love for you to give me a call, Donnie, because I want to have this conversation with you. I'm a very Afrocentric person. You see the way my hair is, you know, this is me. I love that. I love anything with Africa, and I believe in African identity and so on. But what I want to say about this, what you put here, is this: I have brought up 3 young men, and they don't, you know, they go with their hair. At one point, my son's hair was plaited up. Some people used to say he looked prickle and all of that, even after when he left school, right? His hair was like that. But you know what? When you combine, it's a combination of things, Miss McCLEAN, that you're looking at. And that's where I want us to become adults. Let us be adults as we're talking. Donnie, I understand what you're saying, but let's look at the combination. It's not just the hair. So you're telling me about this person who was brilliant, well-groomed,
Well-groomed,
flat hair.
yes, and disciplined. Those
But
are the keys. Yes.
when you have that combined with the loose legislation that is with the marijuana, you understand? And what we are living, what's going on right now, we've got to stop. We have to lay down some stuff, Donnie. You understand? I hope you understand what I'm saying. Give me a call and let us have a conversation about it, because I think we need to understand we can't mix apple and oranges. You understand? There's a time and a place for everything. You see? And I, Miss McCLEAN, as a boy child, I grew, there are 3 of them. And nobody, thanks be to God, at the moment in any jail or anything. Everybody finished university and everything. And if you see them, they're very Afrocentric. You understand? So I think that we need to be able to put things in a context. And where we are right now, the very last thing I'll say is that anybody is going to come before us and want to be in government, they need to be able to tell us, what are you going to do to put back on what is happening to our young people? I'm very serious about it. I don't care who it is.
Yeah.
I ain't voting for you. You've got to be able to show me how you go. What are you going to do at a leadership level? Yeah. So, Donnie, I get you and I follow you and I understand that thing about identity. But I think in the climate that we have right now, we have to look at it in a different way. Our children are not there. They're not there to send them to school. Ask the teachers, they're not focusing, Donnie. Let the teachers be real with you. Something is wrong. Okay? Yes, the sudden shift. It was too sudden and too many things at once. I could keep going on, but I need to done. Mr. Barber, good night. Good night, Mr.
It was a pleasure.
Oh, my Lord.
I took something for the head here, and the first show of the year, I had to I had to get here. And it's always good to be on the show with MAXINE. I learned so much as I hear her speak. So thank you very much.
And thank you very much for the compliment, and take care of that headache. Make sure your pressure is all right.
Yes, I'll have the, you know, at this age now you have to make sure that yes, but I'm glad I came eventually. And that is the, and tonight was an eye-opener, and I think we needed it as a teacher. As a teacher, you have to listen to these type of conversations.
Good night, Barbados. We speak life over our young people tonight. Life,
Yes.
life. God bless you.
Good night.
Thank you, Mr. Bob. Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye-bye.
But smoke them out. Smoke them out. Smoke them out. Smoke them out. Where is the queen bee? She's still flying all over the place. On expensive private jets using taxpayers' money. She in care, cause the hive can't make honey if she in there. She forget that we hire she to make honey, so that we could make money. We wanted to know what the workers doing if we hive have no honey. We started a fire to smoke them out, and now getting attacked by stinging bees who were disguised as honey bees. So we want to know who the bees working for, who getting all the honey, and who making all of the money. If you got bees who ain't making no honey, you ain't getting no money. What you gonna do? But smoke them out. Smoke them out, and now getting attacked by stinging bees who were disguised as honey bees. So we want to know who the bees working for, who getting all the honey, and who making all of the money. If you got bees who ain't making no honey, you ain't getting no money. What you gonna do? But smoke them out. Smoke them out. Smoke them out. Smoke them out. Where is the queen bee? She's still flying all over the place. On expensive private jets using taxpayers' money. She in care, cause the hive can't make honey if she in there. She forget that we hire she to make honey, so that we could make money. We wanted to know what the workers doing if we hive have no honey. We started a fire to smoke them out, and now getting attacked by stinging bees who were disguised as honey bees. So we want to know who the bees working for, who getting all the honey, and who making all of the money. If you got bees who ain't making no honey, you ain't getting no money. What you gonna do? Smoke them out. Smoke them out. Who are disguised as honey bees. So we want to know who the bees working for, who getting all the honey, and who making all the money, and who making all of the money. My neighbor, poor man like me, got the same problem. Thought we were keeping honey bees, but we bees ain't making no honey. We ain't getting no money. So we want to know who the bees working for, who getting all the honey, and who making all of the money. Poor man like me, got the same problem. Thought we were keeping honey bees, but we bees ain't making no honey. We ain't getting no money. So we want to know